Whoa, your video just went out and now it went back in. Okay, I'm just gonna assume that it start.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
now
says
it's starting to record. Okay.
yeah, things are moving.
Fun technical issues. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are doing a movie theaters versus streaming discussion, and I'm being joined by a very special guest, Bob Trate. I
Hello.
almost I almost said Mr. Bob Trate, but I'm remembering what we just talked about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's weird. It's I guess it's a cliche joke. That's my dad. Mr. Trade is
mhm.
my dad. It's not me. So it's a little weird. It's a little strange.
uh, Bob, you mind going into your credentials a little bit as to why I asked you to come here today?
Well, I am the marketing director and as well as the programming director currently at the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, PA. I've spent the last 18 to 20 months kind of dealing with COVID-19 in the fact that will people come out to the movie theaters or not? It's been a very strange ride of trying to program films that people will come and see in relation to what is being offered on a streaming service. So we have to, we're a movie theater. We have 3 screens. We also do live acts like bands and comedians, but those really haven't started back up again until this last August, where we had our first concert and it was a sellout. But up until that point, it was, do we offer a movie streaming through our own platform on through our website, or do we run a repertory film, or do we run a new film? So that's where I've been coming from and what I've been working with in the last 20 months or so of trying to keep the Colonial Theater going.
So, if I'm not mistaken, the Colonial Theater is the oldest movie theater in the States, is it, or one of?
It might be. Our doors kind of were built in 1902, but in
Mhm.
1903 we had our first like live stage performance, and then a couple of years later, we actually had movies. So we've had Houdini performed at our theater, and Mary Pickford came by. There is the urban legend, which I'm still trying to nail down, that Claude Rains himself, who used to live in the next county, actually lived in our county, in Chester County. He actually came to the movies and watched The Invisible Man with his daughter. She talks about it on an Invisible Man documentary, and we're assuming that that's us because there would really be no other movie theater at the time. So we're still trying to nail down if it was indeed us. But we've been around since Open the Doors, built in 1902. We've been around since 1903, and we're most famous for being the movie theater from the Blob.
Mhm.
So anytime you see like a Hollywood montage of either monster movies or going to the movies, you'll always see the front of the Colonial Theater and people running out in terror, but yet still smiling as they run out of the theater during the block.
Mhm. Now,
And we
well,
were
I personally don't live in Pennsylvania, but I do see that you guys put on Blobfest, and you guys actually recreate that scene too.
We do. We have Blobfest is every year. We are coming up on our 23rd year of Blobfest, but we call it like Blobfest 22 or something like. It's weird how the numbers work out. So it's a 23rd Blobfest, but because of the years, it's 22. That's what I want to say. It confuses us sometimes. It's
Mhm.
Blobfest 2022, but it's the 23rd Blobfest. Yeah, they just couldn't sync that up. I don't know why at the beginning. But we do Blobfest every year. It's a 3-day festival that it celebrates the Blob. On Friday night, we have a full run out. So you get a ticket, you get a live show. There's usually some stage acts and stuff, a lot of B-50s humor and music. And then at a certain point in the night, you run out of the theater into the streets of Phoenixville. And it draws attention from all over the place. We've even had helicopters flying over the top to get people running out in mass hysteria. We have not done it the last 2 years in the real world. We've done virtual Blobfest, which the first year was 1.5 days of programming where we did a virtual run out. We asked people to run out of their homes, send us the video, and then we compiled them all together. And then last year we did 3 days of programming where we had films, we had shorts, and then we had all kinds of little things mixed in between. I play a character. We've got people who have been characters for years, and then we added more and more to it. So it was it was gone with the wind of virtual events, and I hope we never have to do it again because it just took too much out of me. I felt like I was editing Gone with the Wind and had to get it done by a certain date because we streamed it on Vimeo, But it was a lot of work. I think it was more work than regular Blobfest.
Mhm. So I know you probably showed the original Blob is a given the most famous scene.
Yeah,
Do you ever screen the remake? I
we
believe from the 90s.
88.
88. Okay.
We screened the 88 Blob back in oh god, it might have been like 2010, but we did it like the weekend before Blobfest. There is kind of this weird there was this weird purist, like everything has to be from the 50s or the
Mhm.
60s kind of thing that ties with Blobfest. But we get so many requests for the 88 Blob. And I refer to it, if I was the Blob, I refer to it as the little brother of the Blob. That people want to see it. They want to experience it. So this year we are considering actually offering the 88 Blob. It is rated R. There is nudity in it. It is very gory and slimy, but offering it maybe as a late night alternative to people who really just want to go to the movies. And usually we have the Blob Ball, which is on Friday night after the run out, which is a big swing 50s dance kind of thing. People dress up and there's live band and the whole bit. But we've been debating, should we offer that late night movie? And we kind of teased it a little bit this year in our virtual Blob Fest by we never run the Blob on Friday night, ever. This year for the virtual Blob Fest, we had a character who's a mad scientist. His name's Dr. Frankenstone. He actually took over the program and said, "We're showing the Blob anyway." And then we ran the Blob virtually on Friday night. So you actually got an extra night of it. And we're getting more and more people who, I'm not going to go Saturday. I'm going to go Friday. I can't make it Sunday when we show the Blob again. I want to see the movie. So it's also a matter of how much staff we have and how many people we have to do this. It's 72 hours. Like, we're not open the whole time, but it's still, you got to go home and sleep, and how many managers we have. It's tough. So usually when the dance is over, we're done for the night. We're back in the next morning, but we're getting a lot of people who are asking for the 88 Blob, show the regular 58 Blob at night. So we've debated it. We've been talking about it. We really hope that it's going to be in this year's schedule.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much takes care of the intros. Ready to get into the first point? Because
Sure.
we've gone for about 10 minutes and on about Blobfest. That's the whole gist of these discussions. We can tangent any which way we want
I
to.
could I could talk about Blobfest for years.
Well, like I said, I'm just gonna have to take your word for it because I don't live in Pennsylvania. So
Well, you've got time. I mean, it's July 8th, 9th, and 10th this year. It's always the weekend right after the 4th of July. So if the 4th of
mm,
July falls on a Sunday, it's going to be that following Friday. I think that's how that works this year, or this coming year. But you have time. It's a 3-day festival. We do have B&Bs in town. There is a hotel to stay in town. And we close the streets off. There's a street fair all day Saturday. So if you want movie paraphernalia, Blob stuff, everything. It's all there, and it's a lot of fun.
all right. So yeah, the first point I want to dive into is the movie theater business in general, just the general gist of it. You look at all these mainstream news sites like MSNBC is a big one, and
Mhm.
it's like, well, the vast majority of the movie theaters business model comes from their concessions. Obviously, I'm assuming the Colonial is not corporate owned, is it?
We are not. We are a nonprofit.
Okay.
We were reestablished in 1999 by the Association for the Colonial Theater. So we run as a nonprofit. Um, that gives us certain leeway, and other times it does make it a little bit difficult for us. But we are a nonprofit, so we are in the preservation of the theater itself. And within the last, God, we're going on 22 years now. You can see the difference that once the Colonial reopened, once the movie started coming back on a regular basis, the rest of the town has revitalized itself. Before it was a town, I mean, I'll speak honestly, I would come on a Sunday, I would park as close as I could to the theater, run in and run out. And that's on a Sunday at 2 o'clock. Now you spend a whole afternoon in town. There's restaurants, there's places to shop. You can walk with your children. There's so many more families in Phoenixville now. When the steel mill closed back in the 80s, late 80s, it really killed the town. And there were people who thought that the theater was the reason that would bring everything back. So if we had a place to watch movies, to congregate, to participate in a communal event together, that the town would come back. And they were right, and it did.
Mhm. So I'm just curious, like, how do you guys, where do you guys make like the majority of your money? Is it concessions? Is it ticket sales? Is it perhaps other events that you put on? Because I know that the Colonial is very unique in the sense that you guys have like actual stages. Is that correct?
We have an
It's not.
actual
It's not just a wall with a screen.
No, it's an actual stage. It is not the best stage for performances. So when I say that is like you don't want to put on West Side Story with multiple sets or How to Succeed
Mhm.
in Business where you need 170 cast members. The screen is not going to move. So you kind of have to drop a curtain down, or you have to have something that'll block the screen. And the wings aren't your typical wings. I studied theater in high school and college, and it's not the best for bringing in. You kind of just want a one stage uh, play, like a one set play for this. So you don't want to change anything. Everything's got to be right in front of you. And then you have this giant white screen, which does not go up or down. It's there. So when we have bands come in and play, like we just had John Anderson was the first band that we had back in August that sold out. They can project things up on the screen, and it's a huge screen, so they can do all kinds of fun things with it. But yeah, it does have a live act, and we do have a drag show, which we do have in our second biggest screen of 170 seats, but we can actually retract those seats. So in the building next door, we bought the old bank and turned it into two more screens. So we didn't touch our original theater. We just knocked a wall out and went next door and put in two more screens. So we can retract things, and we've done, Amy Mann has just set up the piano in a smaller theater for us and performed there with a more intimate setting. So we do have a little bit of a leeway, but you're not going to put on West Side Story at our theater.
Uh, so going back to the original question, like how much does that typically bring in, like the live performances and
live Live performances are great for us. We do have booking agents, Point Entertainment, and we have BRE Entertainment. We book concerts and live acts through them, through those two agencies. So that's a big hunk of it. We do have regular movie ticket prices. So we do have percentages that we have to pay to the different screens, and all those movies are different. Like for example, like we're running Marvel's Eternals right now. The percentage of money that we have to give to Disney is different than it would be for an independent art house film that maybe comes through A24. So each movie is different, and then we run repertory films.
hey guys, I'm actually recording this as I am editing this audio by adding some video clips and making sure that it runs smoothly. But anyway, I forgot to ask Bob to expand on this point. Like, what the hell is a repertory film? Because most people have probably never heard this term. For those of you that have heard it, don't worry about it. But for those that don't know, basically, I pulled it here from repertorycinema.com, in that repertory cinema is the actual definition is repertory cinema is a term for a cinema that specializes in showing classic or notable older films. So think, if your local movie theater is re-showing Terminator 2 Judgment Day, or The Goonies, or Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Breakfast at Tiffany's, that is considered repertory cinema. So I'm probably going to have a few more of these throughout this video, but for right now, let's get right back to the interview with Bob Trate.
So like I just talked to Sony today, and we want to run a old 80s horror movie, and it's $150. That's it. That's all we have to do is pay them $150, and we can show that on a Sunday afternoon, and that's all we have to pay. But then I got a 35 millimeter print from Universal, and I have to pay $300, and that doesn't even cost what it takes to ship that print from Los Angeles to me here in PA. So that's going to probably be another $400 or $500, because film prints are not light; they are very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we have to take into consideration. So when we look at those, we try to keep our general tickets together, but when we do events of like, oh, we're doing a triple feature, we're doing a double feature, how much are we going to make actually off of what we spent on getting the movie there? Is it a digital projection, digital cinema projection, or is it a 35 millimeter print? Which in our case draws more people. We still have a 35 millimeter projector. It's the original one from the Blob. I'm sure it's been rebuilt a few times over, but that is the one you see in the movie. And it does weigh on our factors of what we can show. And then there are times like I wanted to show Hellraiser for years, but the people who own the rights to Hellraiser want $1,000 up front. We're not going to make any money. So, unless I got Doug Bradley coming himself, Pinhead, it's really not worth it for us to do a movie of that nature.
Yeah, because I was about to ask, how often do you do like double features, triple features, or like a retro night kind of thing? You know what I'm getting at with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I remember and I know it's probably a bad example, like Movie Tavern used to do that, where it's like one night a week they would show like a random movie from the '80s. One week it would be 16 Candles, then it would be St. Elmo's Fire, then Breakfast Club, whatnot.
Yeah. We have 3 programs right now. One program is we have actually 4. Our oldest program is our Classic Sundays, where we run a classic film, and that can really run the gauntlet from anything from we've done like 16 Candles on a Sunday, but we've also done things like Gone with the Wind and Casablanca, movies from the 50s and 60s. Those are generally what more that audience wants to see. They want to see an older black and white movie. That can be film, that can be a DCP. It just really depends on the assets. We showed in October, we showed the Abominable Dr. Phibes for Halloween for the start of October. And we could only get a 35 millimeter print. That was the only thing that I believe it might have been Sony. That was about all they had. So we could have shown the Blu-ray, but we had a real film print, and it was worth it. We actually have a theater organ in our theater. So it was put back in I believe around 2014 or 2015. So we actually had, because there's an organ played so heavily in the film, we actually had someone playing the organ before the film. So that kind of add to the mood. So you got more than just a movie ticket and more than just seeing I believe it was the 50th or 60th anniversary, might have been 50th anniversary of the film. You also got a chance to see the theater organ, and we had it all decorated. The guy was dressed as he was Dr. Phibe. So that our classics is our oldest running film. It used to be about the only thing we did besides we'd show an art house movie, and then there would be a classic on Sunday. And then around 2008, 2009, we added Fright Night. So every first Friday of the month, we would show a horror film. That could be anything from A Clockwork Orange to The Thing. We even did Blade Runner, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Blade Runner's not really horror, but eventually we split it off we did a cult cinema. And then we added, Blade Runner moved to things like, over into cult cinema. So we would be able to show a more cult film there. So it's like maybe like Starman, we put that in cult cinema. So we try to balance between the two. So it can't be horror all the time. So we said, let's do another programming. So we do those every month. We do a cult, we do a Fright Night, and then we just started right at the beginning of the pandemic. We were going to start with The Matrix and do Action Pack, which was just going to be straight up action movies. And we kind of delayed it, and then we waited until September, and then we started with Terminator 2. So you could say that's cult. You could say it's action. It's just we put it in action. So this weekend, actually, we're doing Starship Troopers for our action-packed movie. So we kind of try to balance it out. So we're giving people different flavors every month. But our classic movies are every Sunday. You get a classic film. But then usually the first Friday of the month is the Fright Night. Cult somewhere usually at the end, and then Action Pack will be somewhere in the middle. So just to give people that different flavor, like we've celebrated Thelma and Louise's 30th anniversary as a cult movie. We're going to do The Room as its own event. So we do have a lot of different things, but as far as like double features, we do Splatterfest, which is 5 Italian horror films. We do that in August. That starts around 7, usually goes about 3 or 4 in the morning. There's usually some film prints of that, but the further in time we get, the harder it is to get film prints, especially of some of these Italian films. And a lot of them get restored, so then we're showing brand new restorations. And then we have Horror Bowl, which takes place on Super Bowl Sunday. It's still in its infancy. We did it the first year of 2020, and we did 3 John Carpenter films, the Apocalypse trilogy. We did The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. which are his self-titled Apocalypse trilogy. So this year we're doing 3 films for Horror Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday, but I can't tell you what that is because we haven't revealed it yet officially.
Hey guys, with regard to this horrible, the only thing I have to say is stick around until the very, very end of this interview. Trust me, I'm not going to go into it any further than this. But anyway, back to the interview.
But it features one actor, and he's got 3 films that we're going to do, and it's all in celebration of him. As we just love the actor, and a lot of us just think it's going to be fun. And then we just actually hosted a 24-hour marathon of 24, actually 25 because of daylight savings time, straight horror films. I'd say 13 of them were on film, 2 were DCP restorations, but that was through Exhumed Films. And they put on the event, but we hosted it for them so that they could bring the films in, show them and everything. But they needed a venue to put that on. So we do a lot of different programming. And we also have Krampus Knock. It's called the Krampus Christmas Spectacular. And then we're going to show Krampus this year, and Black Christmas is a double feature. So it can be a triple, it can be a double. It just all depends on our mood and what our schedule looks like too. That's another big factor when you have live acts coming in. Sometimes you can't have our 35 millimeter projectors in the same theater that a live act would be on. So if, again, John Anderson's coming in to perform, he needs the theater for the whole day to set up, test lights, do the music and everything. We can't show a movie that day. So on film. So we can show DCPs, but we can't show film.
So getting back to that action block that you talked about, you know, you piqued my interest as an action movie fan, and you talked about doing The Matrix, Starship Troopers. How do foreign films do at the Colonial? Because when I'm thinking like action, I'm thinking of stuff like Hard Boiled or The Killer, you know, John Woo movies where you could like appeal to that to the John Wick fans, everyone who thinks that, you know, gun fu only started 10 years ago. Well, you can have these movies.
Well, we've done a couple. We did Drunken Master, and then I think we did another Jackie Chan, and I can't remember what it was. And then there was another one in there. I can't remember. It was Five Fingers of Death. I don't think that's Jackie Chan, but I think we did the Five Fingers of Death.
Okay.
They didn't play very well. But what we look at is we look at our audience and how it changes over time, as well as what has come to Phoenixville and changed. So when we did those movies, there wasn't a bar down the street that plays kung fu movies when there's not a football or soccer game going on. So that audience is a little bit different now. So because of COVID, we really haven't had a chance to dip back into that. We've done more of the bigger action movies right now. So we're kind of waiting to see, can we go back and show Enter the Dragon, which is, you know, it's very broad. You know, you're going to know, people know what that movie is. But can you show something that's a little bit more crazier, maybe that people haven't heard of before? We were on the brink of showing Miami Connection. I don't know if you know that one.
Is that like the one I'm thinking of from like the 80s?
Yeah, it's
like an exploitation movie.
Kung fu rock and roll. Yeah, it's a little different. It's a little different. We were like 3 days away from showing that, and they shut us down. And we had built up that audience by showing them that ridiculous trailer for months. And we were like, yes, we've got everybody, they're hooked. And then we got shut down. So, you know, that's something that it takes. We're trying to get the action movie thing to go. We've shown Predator, which I would call more an action movie than a sci-fi movie. And we had like 300 people show up. We've shown Point Break and had 300 people show up. And we ran those as cult films. Now we put them in the action pack, but it's still in its little fledging, you know, it's still not quite grabbed its audience yet. So we're playing around. We're going to show Dread in January of 2022 is our first action pack of the movie. And our last one is Batman Returns. So on film. So we're going to show Batman Returns as our Christmas action pack movie.
Yeah, see, I actually disagree with you on Predator. I think that's more of a horror movie than
Which
an action movie. Predator.
Predator? Oh no, it's action, man. We could argue about that, but it's too much testosterone in that movie. I don't think it's scary at all. I think it's just it's Schwarzenegger and all those guys just chewing up the scenery. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So, do you see that as a problem with these huge multiplexes? And what I'm referring to is the fact like they don't put those events on like they used to anymore. Because I remember about 10, 15 years ago they used to, where they did like an action block or a horror block type of thing. But now it's like they just stick to new releases and that is it. That's their whole bread and butter.
Well, where I live here in Phoenixville, we're not too far from Philadelphia. There is a Regal 24, and then there is a movie tavern within 2 miles of each other. And the movie tavern has adapted to running the retro films since they opened. Like they'll do a Sunday, a Saturday, or they'll have like a block of, oh, we're going to show 3 movies from 1982. And so we kind of have to be mindful of what they're doing. At least we did before the pandemic. I don't really see that happening as much anymore with them. The Regal 24 used to do that on a regular basis. They just straight up stopped. Now, every once in a while, they do like, it's the 30th, there's a 30th anniversary, almost 40th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And they'll show that, you know. And the problem with that is it's usually a Fathom event. And I think sometimes Fathom events are great. And other times they're showing you a Blu-ray or they're doing a live stream coming from somewhere. And it's just not the same. So we try to get, we'll get a restoration DCP or we'll actually get it on film and show it. And we actually try and go to local collectors. We're building our own little catalog of people of what they have. So we just showed Halloween 4, 5, and 6 in one night. And we were fortunate enough to get 2 of those prints from a local collector. So that saved us a lot of money because we didn't have to rent them. We were able to show them, just pay the rights to see it. Pay the rights to show it, and then just get those prints. They literally dropped them off. I mean, them dropping them off alone saved us $300 to $400. So, we had a nice turnout, but it wasn't the best turnout, but we saved a lot of money in what we did to get those prints. And that draws people itself. Like, I'm sure if I said, we're going to show Raiders of the Lost Ark on Father's Day on 35 millimeter, we'd have a huge draw. Whereas in just, we're going to show Raiders on DCP, we'll do okay. I mean, it'll be a good day with Dad, but a 35 millimeter show will draw a different, they're like, wow, I can see this. We show Halloween, I think we're on the 2nd or 3rd year in a row, we show Halloween on film. It's a 40-year-old print, and it draws like crazy. And people want to see it that way. They, especially younger people, which surprises me, because they own it. They can see it anywhere. It's on everything. It's on Shudder. It's on It's on Peacock. They can watch it at home. They want to see it dirty, which surprises me because a couple of years ago they would complain. Now they're not complaining. So I don't know. Something happened during the pandemic where a lot of them want to see and experience it on film. It's good for me.
See, one thing that we could argue though is that because people have been cooped up for the last 18 to 24 months, so just the fact of getting out of the house, it's like, even if it's a movie I've seen 100 times, screw it, I'm going to go out see the same movie I've seen 100 times.
Right.
Because you have all these major movies that just keep getting delayed. And the more famous example is that Top Gun Maverick just got pushed back yet again to May 2022. Yeah. It originally was supposed to come out when? July of 19?
Yeah,
I believe it was supposed to.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Then they pushed it back a year for reshoots. Then they kept delaying it for COVID, and then they just delayed it again.
Paramount is I think they're just being shy. I don't get it. Disney seems to, they did the test the waters with the plus premium, and then they put Shang-Chi out and it did gangbusters. So Eternals is the #1 movie in America, but we're showing it right now and we're not really getting an audience for it. We're showing French Dispatch, which is somewhere bouncing around 10 in America right now, and we're doing really good numbers on it. It could be the fact that people associate French Dispatch with our kind of theater over Eternals, but we're going to deal with that this coming weekend. Actually, tonight on Thursday, we're showing Ghostbusters as a sneak preview. So will Ghostbusters draw at our theater? We've been advertising it for weeks now that we're going to get it, but will it draw in for the next 2 to 3 weeks and over holiday weekend? So we're Eternals didn't really do too much for us. So it's all weird. I understood the business before this started, and I have a new appreciation for what has happened since. So it's very strange. It's a strange time, and it's hard to predict.
And speaking of day and date releases, perfect tangent. So, obviously the whole thing started with Trolls World Tour. So how did you feel about it initially, and how do you feel about it now? Was it really doom and gloom for the industry as a whole, or did everything kind of balance out?
I mean, you could see it for years. I was a long-term video store clerk, so I understood the industry before most people could understand it. Like, people couldn't understand, and this is going to blow your mind, that Pulp Fiction cost $120 to buy on VHS when it came out. You
Yeah,
could rent
and
it for $2, $3, but to buy it, $120. And I actually sold a copy to somebody at that price, which shocked me. That
wow.
somebody wouldn't wait. So I've understood the industry from that point all the way to now. And when you look at, like, I didn't think that the Trolls World Tour movie was a big enough draw, and it did great. And I think part of that was people were stuck at home with their kids. They needed something. They needed some entertainment. They needed something different. They needed an event like, hey, kids, we're all getting together. We're going to watch a movie, which is a communal experience that I don't think we really have anymore. And Paramount even jumped onto that at one point during the pandemic and did like a must-see TV Sunday night movie. They were going through their catalog with big titles on a Sunday night for a reason to commune. I myself I'm going on almost 2 years now of doing that with my friends. We pick a movie that we all can somehow neither own or have and do that communal experience. So I think this segues into the fact that people, I think, even though they have that option, I think there are those people that still want to go and see a movie with a group of people. Case in point, the Halloween movie. Everybody owns it, everybody's seen it, but to come and experience it with an audience creates a different memory of the film. Like, perhaps you're not going to laugh at something again that you've seen it 30 times. But now all of a sudden somebody's laughing at, PJ Swales, or PJ, I can't remember her name, when she goes totally, and it just, everybody, those laughters build every time she says totally in Halloween. Maybe that becomes infectious. Maybe someone jumping for the first time because they're actually watching Halloween for the first time behind you scares you. So now you have that memory and that experience, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, that is scary. I know the beats, I know Carpenter's music, and that's when the body swings. And it's all in your head. You don't even need to look at it anymore. I'm that way with The Shining. I can close my eyes and just listen to it. So I think there's the audience of people who it's just another movie to them. They can sit down with their kids. They don't have to drop $60 to $70 to go out to the movies, maybe see a movie. You don't know if it's new. And then if you're doing that on date night with your wife, finding a babysitter, there's more money. So you could do it all at home. During COVID, that was your release. That was your chance to see something different. But as the world moves forward, I think you're going to have two camps. You're going to have the person who doesn't want to spend all the money to go out. And then you have the other person who says, no, I want to give myself to the movie experience, see it, turn off my phone, and get a vacation from the world and sit down and enjoy something. I think James Bond, the new one on your TV, isn't James Bond. And I have my whole life to watch Bond that way. But I only have that maybe once, maybe twice, that opportunity to see it as big as possible. I think people will eventually, you're going to have two camps. You're going to have the cinephiles who love it, and then you're going to have the people who are just like, you know what, I can't find the time to go out. I got to wait till everybody's asleep, and then I'll watch a movie. So it's going to be an interesting what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And I think Disney is doing the right thing by saying, all right, we're not going to do the premium access anymore. Now, I think they took a hit from it because of Scarlett Johansson, but I think they're
Well,
going
what
to.
also didn't help them was the success of Shang-Chi.
Right.
So that probably damaged their potential defense from her
Right.
lawsuit.
Right. And I'll flip it. I'll say, look, our theater didn't run Dune. We thought HBO Max, it's on Dune. A lot of people have HBO Max because of the last year. Everybody got it. And I watched Dune and I was like, you know what? And I love the original David Lynch Dune, so don't get me wrong. And I watched it and I went, you know, if I would have paid money to see that, I think I'd hate it a lot more if I would have paid that much money. And instead, I just have my subscription. So I kind of felt that the Suicide Squad, I kind of felt bad. I was like, that was really good. That was a fun movie. I wish I would have seen that in the theater. But I also have a 2-year-old son. And, you know, I only have one, maybe two babysitters that I can rely on. And if they're here with him during the daytime, they're not going to stick around so I can go see the Suicide Squad when they're exhausted for the day. So, you know, there's certain movies. Yeah, no, you know, I think it all just depends on your mood and what you expect out of a cinematic experience.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't have that. They're just like, I grew up with movies on, you know, on video, and I'm fine watching them that way, and I'll
the
watch
video
it that
store
way.
kid kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or everything, you know, at some of these, the millennials and the generation behind them, they literally, I figured, I didn't want to assume, but
I'm only 25, so
yeah, they can watch anything, any major movie you could go and watch. You say, you know, I need to find Halloween 4 or 5. They're on Paramount. But for my generation, my wife and I, we are trying to find things that we've never seen before. And we run into that block a lot, like things that no one cares about. So they're not on any streaming service. So all of a sudden you're watching it on some bootleg of YouTube because nobody cares. Like the Doctor Strange TV movie.
Are you talking about the animated one that came out in the late 2000s?
No, I own that one. I have that on DVD. No,
Okay.
there was a TV one. No, wait, was it Doctor Strange or was it Doctor? There was another Avenger back in the day. It was like, I want to say Dr. Mordred or something. That's a whole nother movie in itself. But there was like a Doctor Strange pilot, and it was everywhere before Doctor Strange, the film came out, the new film with Benedict Cumberbatch. It was everywhere on YouTube. Everybody had it. And then a week before, it was gone. They got rid of it. So it was one of those things that if you were lucky and you watched it, you had the chance. Now you couldn't see it if you wanted to. So my wife and I find we use Just Watch, which is an app that tells you where things are. We're always trying to find things that we haven't seen because we've seen so much. So it's, I don't know, we might have gotten off the tangent, but your generation can find anything. And for me, it was going to a different video store, trying to find who had a copy of Transformers the movie. Because nobody had it. And I found one video store that had it, and some guy stole it. So the box just sat there. And they're like, yeah, that box has been there for like three years. No one's ever brought it back. I'm like, well, why would you take it out? They're like, well, maybe he'll bring it back. And I'm like, what? Why would you keep it?
To be fair, I myself do have video store memories. I only had Blockbuster, unfortunately, because this was like early mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And then they went away, I believe, early 2010s. Because I know they filed for bankruptcy, then Dish bought them out.
Yeah.
And then they just shut them all down.
I remember my last, when I lived in LA, my last trip to Blockbuster, there was literally one down the street from where I lived in Los Angeles. And I walked down, and my wife and I had been there once or twice, looked it around, didn't really get anything. And then we came back like a week later, and a big sign, closing. And it was just like this. You're like, oh,
yep.
Yeah. And she
liquidation, 80% off. Everything must go.
Exactly. She and I were just like, didn't have to say a word. We literally like hit every aisle, like pulling Criterion DVDs off the shelf, anything sci-fi. And we just had stacks. And we still have those movies to this day because we open up, we said, look, it's one of we have Zardoz on from Blockbuster. So we have little things like that.
One good thing about Blockbuster was their DVD cases and that how indestructible those things were.
Yes.
If I am ever out at a Goodwill or a pawn shop looking for DVDs, if I see a Blockbuster case, I'm snagging that, even if it's empty. Because 9 times out of 10, they'll just give it to you.
I feel bad because back in the day, I worked at Hollywood, I worked at Suncoast, I worked at West Coast, and I worked at Blockbuster. And then I still worked at an FYE and a Wall. So I really did work all over the place. But I used to I was such a movie snob. I'd be like, it doesn't even have the original cover on it. I don't want this Hollywood video. And I wouldn't even buy it, it'd be used or something to get rid of them. And now I wish I wish I would have bought them all with all the logos and the covers on them stuff. And I quit Blockbuster because my manager was a jerk. So I quit and I put my shirt on the counter and just left and said, I'm not working with you anymore. And and left. And I was like, why didn't I just keep the shirt? Why didn't I just walk out? They probably wouldn't have given me my last check or something, but it would have been worth it just to have like what you're wearing, the blue polo with the little Blockbuster tag. And I saw one once at a toy show and the guy wouldn't sell it. He's like, no, I wear this. You would not believe how many comments I get on my Blockbuster shirt. I'm like, yeah, I know. I wish I would have kept mine. I even called my one of my old managers and said, you still have any? She goes, no, I threw those out years ago. I was like, why? She goes, yeah, I feel the same way. Why did I throw those out?
Especially with all the nostalgia. Now you only have the one left. I believe it's in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah. A friend of mine lived in Bend, and she said she went there quite often and stuff. And I even shredded all of my cards. I was like, why did I shred my cards? They were so much fun. I wish I would have kept it. So I still have name tags from all the different places I worked at. So I was like, I put them up, and you'd see all the video stores that I worked at. So yeah, I miss it. I really do. I miss Netflix. Scanning through Netflix to see what's on there is
Not
as close.
Same.
It's not, but it's as close as you'll ever get to walking the video store aisles. And I used to think back when I was younger how horrible it was to blow most of your Friday night you and your friends trying to pick a title. And who had the membership and who's going to pay the $4 or $3 or whatever it was, or were you going to get two? And if one was terrible, you were going to switch. And now I'm like, wow, I miss that wandering and that debate and she's hot on the box, and do you think she's actually in the movie? And then you find out she's not. So I do miss some of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing Netflix and all these streaming services can never replace is the staff pick section. If you remember that. Because you can always point out who the snobs were. No offense to the cinema snobs out there.
Yep.
And then you have the other guy on the other extreme where it's like nothing but trauma.
Yeah. That was we had those at West Coast. We would change them like holiday picks, Valentine's Day picks, and it was funny because for Valentine's Day picks, every staff member had Bram Stoker's Dracula on there for Valentine's Day. And it was the weirdest thing because it was the one movie we could all agree on. You'd have An Affair to Remember and, all these True Romance. And then Bram Stoker Dracula. We used to run it in the store, and we'd fast forward over the Wolfman and Lucy scene. Everybody knew exactly, go ahead and run over and then, okay, we're fine now. The rest of the movie's just gory.
I know I saw a documentary on Independent Game Store a couple years ago. I don't remember where it was.
So guys, I went digging around the internet during post, and I actually found the documentary I was thinking of. It's called Video World: The Death of a Video Store. It was a documentary based on a video store out of Connecticut. Just to put it into some context, but I will put a link to it in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. But anyway, guys, let's get right back to the interview.
I remember it being in the Northeast, but somebody said, "Oh yeah, someone like jokingly put Freddy Got Fingered in the staff picks."
Freddy, would you like some sausage? Freddy, would you like some sausages? Freddy, would you like some sausage? Sausages.
I'm sexy! I'm a sexy boy! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong!
And yeah, let's take it off after an hour. It's like, man.
Yeah, those were fun days that you could put different things into your staff picks, and you'd get like, "Where's John? I want to ask him about this movie." And like, no, you don't want that movie. John's messing with you. So yeah, those were fun days. It's something I wish I could do at the movie theater. You just
have like a staff picks block or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be fun just to have the shelf somewhere, like in one of the candy counters, staff picks, and just have people's VHS tapes, things that they'd want. So I feel bad because I can't throw my VHS tapes out. I've gotten rid of so many of them, and then there are times like, no, I really need this VHS collector's edition expanded cut of aliens because my Blu-ray Monday might not work, but I need to hold on to this brick, and they're so heavy now. I remember I used to carry like 25 or 30 of them in a shot. Now I'm like, God, these were heavy. What was I thinking?
Yeah. Speaking of VHS, you know the movie Marty, right? Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah, yeah. He won the Academy Award.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. My uncle actually has a VHS copy, and there's actually a scene, and it was only released in the VHS version, never
Oh,
in DVD, never on Blu-ray.
wow.
And I don't remember what it is. So yeah, basically, moral of the story: don't throw away your VHS tapes.
No, and it's weird because you never know if the studio's going to re-release that, if they have a
Yep.
contractual obligation to the director or the rights holders. For example, we just at the 24-hour horathon, the first movie they showed was The Exorcist. But they had to show the director's cut. They could not show the original theatrical release. So this was in there. This is William Frinkins, the director. This was his thing. He only wants that version shown. And they were like, well, that's the only version we were going to show anyway. But it's interesting because I wanted to show Dune with all the paintings at the beginning. That's a TV version only. You cannot theatrically show that. And I tried to show Michael Dougherty's new version of Krampus that's coming out through Scream Factory, the Naughty and Nice cut, I think it's called. So it's got extra scenes in it and such. And I wanted to show that for our Krampus event, and even talked to Michael Dougherty about it. And he's like, they're not going to let you. They're only going to let you show the theatrical cut. He goes, trust me. And sure enough, Universal said theatrical cut only. So it's interesting how those little things like that. There's a movie called Phase 4, which is all about ants, I believe, like killing people or something. And it's cut to hell. And Joe Dante said on the podcast that made me that he actually has seen the original ending, and it makes the movie make more sense. It's a more satisfying ending. But he said he's had to see it on film at a theater in Los Angeles, and he still to this day does not understand why this footage is not incorporated back into the film or even included on an extra on a DVD or a Blu-ray. So there's all these weird, you never know. And it's neat things like that when you still have it. It's like getting the original you get the original Star Wars on VHS, and I'm talking like you get one from the 80s. It's a kind of a different movie now because there's, first of all, you're seeing it pan and scan. You're not seeing the other aliens in the background. So you're already getting this like almost tunnel vision to what you're used to seeing now. And the effects aren't as clean. They're not as polished as what we've become accustomed to. So I actually have an original VHS of Star Wars in the weird, it's not quite a clamshell, but it's different. You open the top and then it sits inside. So I actually have a version like that. And I watched it like once and I was like, I'm never going to watch this again because I don't want it to rip. And it's a different experience. It's weird seeing the bars on the side now because we're so used to TVs being like our monitors.
Yeah, I remember when they re-released the quote unquote original theatrical cuts of Star Wars in the late 2000s, and it was just like, what was it, like the Laserdiscs? The Laserdisc prints?
Yeah, it might have been the Laserdisc prints. Yeah. And even
Yeah.
then, wow, if you really want to go back, a friend of mine bought a Laserdisc player and bought the giant brick of Star Wars on Laserdisc because it was the only way you could watch it widescreen. It was the only way you could do it. Then that's what he bought. I don't even know if he still has them. I should contact him and say, do you still have those Laserdiscs? But I see them from time to time. You go to a record store. Some people don't know what they are. Or those giant video discs. I have a Raiders of the Lost Ark video disc that says on the front, with the trailer to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom coming soon.
So those giant video discs, are those like CEDs or are those completely different?
I have no idea. I can't even play it. I just bought it for the cover art because I'm weird like that. I have a Planet of the Apes one that it features Dr. Zaius more on it than any other character for Planet of the Apes. And I got it for $1 and I'm just like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. And my wife's like, how are we going to frame that? And I'm like, I don't know. We got to figure out something. It doesn't fit in one of those record store like frames. It doesn't work. It's too big. So I tried to find a player at one point and then I ended up with like 5 more. I have Swamp Thing like that. And Swamp Thing's another movie that has a European cut with Adrienne Barbeau like completely naked in it. And to really tangent off, when they released it on DVD for the first time, they didn't clear the rights, I guess, with either Wes Craven or Barbeau to release that cut. So in the States, so that was pulled from the shelves immediately. So if you got one right away, you got the European cut of the film. And now you still have to go and, go to Amazon UK and order that version. And then hopefully you have a region-free player to get that version. But Little Shop of Horrors was the same way. The first time it came on DVD, black and white ending of Don't Feed the Plants. Now it's on the Warner Brothers, special edition. But that was the only way you could get it. And then that DVD was pulled. Whoa, what are you doing? Frank Oz said, no, I have the whole thing in color. Don't do that. So they were running, I don't know, like some sort of video version that they had. Weird stuff. You never know what's out there or what exists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we started, but that's where we ended.
Yeah. I think we started with day and date releases, then we went to memory down video stores, and then
Day and date releases. I will say this: we are very aware of it. When we look at a film, like we just got a movie called Tick Tick Boom with Andrew Garfield, which is directed by Lin-Manuel. It's about the creator of Rent, and we looked at it, and it's coming to Netflix. So we had like a week window to show it. So we actually give the movie the opportunity for some people who don't own Netflix or just want to see the film on a big screen and detach from the rest of the world. We give them that opportunity to see the movie that way. It also, for us, enables us to fill a hole. So we have Eternals and we have French Dispatch right now. We need a third movie because we have 3 screens. You just can't run those 2 all the time. It's overkill. And we give a third option. Day and date release will also, like Amazon has a movie coming out closer to Christmas. Is Becoming the Ricardos with Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. We have a 2-week window on that before it goes to Amazon. So we've had people asking for it. So neither they don't want to see it on Amazon, don't realize it's got a 2-week window, or they just prefer the cinematic experience. So we have to weigh those options for us. For a while there, if it was same day, we were like, it all depends on the streaming service. Everybody has Netflix. It seems to it comes with your home now. It's relatively inexpensive. But as far as Disney goes, we weren't going to carry Black Widow. It wasn't kind of our thing. We took a gamble on Eternals to see if the crowd would come out for it. And we're not getting the result that we thought we would. So we're kind of like, well, all right. It wasn't same day. If it would have been same day, wouldn't have touched it. So there is that difference. It is something that weighs heavily on us. Does everybody have HBO Max? Kind of, yeah, with the pandemic. A year from now, probably not. I'm holding on to it till The Matrix, and then I'm probably going to drop it. But I have a 2-year-old son, and it's the only time I'm going to get to see the likes of Dune, Suicide Squad, The Matrix. I watched that other horror movie that was put out.
Malignant?
Yes, I watched that. I didn't care for it. My wife loved it. I didn't care for it. But, it was something new. It was something nice to see something new. And it, gave me my HBO. Like, all right, well, if the 2 of us would have went to the movies, it would have cost more than HBO for the month.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of see it as well.
I mean, I think we've pretty much touched on this topic, but I gotta ask you. So your action block, horror block, what? Yeah. I know where I'm going back toward the beginning. Do you think that that's helped kind of sustain an audience to the Colonial? Because if you look at the numbers, and I believe I sent you the article last night. I don't know if you had time to look at it, but I read them all. Okay, so yeah, there's a blog by an analytics company, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen in post. But there's a graph where they actually break it down from 1995 to 2019. Even though the average ticket price goes up, the actual box office totals, the actual box office totals kind of remain the same. So do you see that the action block, the horror block, has kind of maintained the audience and even grown it to a degree?
It has. Our what we generalize as our repertory programming has become sometimes our saving grace. Sometimes, sometimes we don't even get to see the movie that we're going to show beforehand to say this is a good choice for us. We have to go off the trailer. We have to go off of our industry insiders telling us this is your kind of film. You should be running this. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. An example of several years ago, we ran a documentary called Swim Team, which looked great, all about this swim team, and nobody came. Nobody came. So we only had one screen at that time, so that was the only movie we could run on. That started the previous Friday, ran to the following Friday, and we had it for 2 weeks. We had a horror movie, and I'm sorry I can't remember which horror movie it was, on Friday night. We had 200 people show up. So there was, $200, 200 people who were coming in for soda, popcorn, maybe picking up a program, maybe finding out what the classic movie was on Sunday. We used to run what we call crowd pleasers on Saturdays. We're touch and go with those, because sometimes it's the right time of the year to have like Back to the Future on a Saturday. Other times of the year is like nobody's coming, no matter what it is. So we kind of have to, before we had the extra 2 screens, before we bought the building next door, the horror and the cult movies, they were our saving graces for the week, that we actually did some better business. We've had a couple of weekends at the in August that movies were kind of like, okay, we're doing all right. But then 200 people show up to see Friday the 13th Part 2. And it's like, what? Or we have a classic movie like North by Northwest, and the place is, 75 to 100 people on a Sunday afternoon when there's a football game going on. We just did Duck Soup and had 50 people show up. I think the first day the Eagles played. It doesn't sound like you would have a conflicting audience there, but believe it or not, in our area, I've seen over the past 15 years, depending on how well our sports teams are doing, can really affect our audience, because for some reason in Philadelphia, there is a communal experience that even if you're not a diehard like Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers fan, there is still that communal experience where you want to be around other people and enjoy the moment, especially if they're really winning. It's not just like, oh, it's Sunday's game. No, if they're on when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, nothing was happening on a Sunday. When the Phillies went to the World Series, nothing. You couldn't compete at all. I mean, restaurants just would shut down because there was nobody, unless you had a bar, TV, forget it. So, and then I even worked at one place where they shut the game off and there was like a riot. People were like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, we don't want everybody congregating in the bar. And then people just left. So all of a sudden, all this business just walked out the door. Mm-hmm. So you have to be mindful of that. But when the Eagles, we couldn't believe we had 50 people show up for Duck Soup, which is, from the 30s. And people wanted to go back out on a gorgeous day. That's another thing. Springtime, we've had a horrible winter. Gorgeous day. Nobody's coming to see whatever movie we picked 6 months ago. So you have to be aware of those things. It's the repertory films have been they can be very powerful. They can help us really build an audience. And to a point where we've noticed, we've had films like Casablanca, 200 people show up every time. So what else are we going to put in that month with Casablanca? What are we going to advertise to that audience of, hey, if you like Casablanca, you're really going to love To Have and To Have Not, with Bogart. So we try to build around those other movies. Or if we have one that we want people to see, we hit them with those advertisements, or we have film hosts who will discuss that and say, oh, like he's in this movie and he's going to be here on this weekend. You want to come and see this because this performance is blue, this performance is red, and in the middle you see where the actor is himself. So our repertory films have really, really helped us. They brought in a younger audience. Our horror films have, and a lot of them are guys your age, Gary, who wants to experience the movie with an audience who've never experienced a movie like Halloween or Friday the 13th Part 1 or Part 3 or Part 8. You know what you're getting. Even if you didn't see Part 7.
I would love to go see Part 8 in a theater, and more specifically, the moment when Jason sucker punches the kid's head.
Right. Exactly. Those moments are, we just, at the 24-hour horror-thon, they showed Mecha Godzilla, and everybody went nuts for all the little cute things that Godzilla was doing and the actor was doing in the suit. People just roared and they enjoyed themselves. And it's the communal experience, I think, that was going to keep people who love it, who embrace it, who enjoy it, who are not on their phones, who want to experience film as you're supposed to see it, I think those are the people who are going to keep the theaters alive. We're all going to have that movie where I'll watch it on streaming. And I've seen a movie on DVD and I've regretted it. Like, I'm like, oh man, I really wish I would have seen that in the theater. Like Austin Powers was a movie that I have come to love. And I saw it and I'm like, I'm not seeing that movie. And I can quote Austin Powers to you now. Being a video store clerk, we used to run it in the store at 7:15, get us all the way to 9:30, out for the day. We're done. And it just became one of those movies. And I'm like, I regret not seeing this in the theater because everybody told me how good it was. I just saw the trailer and was like, nah, I'm done. I'm not going to go see Mike Myers in that. And, because Wayne's World 2 wasn't that good. So I was kind of like, it's all right. I married an axe murderer. I didn't care for that either. So I'm like, I'm not going to go see Austin Powers. And then what? I saw 2 and 3 in the theater. What are you going to do?
Something very similar happened to me with Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows.
Oh, okay.
Everyone was raving like how good it was. And I did go see the first one in theaters back in 2009. But
That's
my
right.
father and I, something I don't ever disclose, I was a professional photographer off and on for the last 13 years.
Okay.
So we just never had time to go see Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, but it finally came out. And I remember we actually ran to Blockbuster because this was 2012 when that movie came out.
Yeah. Yep.
2012, 2013. I think DVD came out 2013.
2012.
And we got home, we plugged it in. We're like, damn, we should have went and saw that.
Yeah.
Probably canceled that event 2 months ago.
So that's one of those things where people want to have that first time experience with a film, see it big, see it loud. That will draw people in for a movie like James Bond. It will also, for repertory films, there's something about seeing Casablanca with an audience, about hearing people tear up and cry when they're singing Les Massés. Also, every year, the Colonial shows It's a Wonderful Life. And there is no other way to watch It's a Wonderful Life than with a group of 300 people, all crying, all cheering, all laughing at the exact same time. And it's the one, last year we didn't do it. The state of Pennsylvania was shut down on December 12th. We had already had private bookings for it. We had people buying tickets. We could only sell like 50 or 60 seats, and it was getting to a point where, oh my God, we're gonna have to add another show. It's gonna be sold out. And when they canceled that from us, that was one of the worst things for me during all of. I mean, there's horrible things, but that not having that communal experience, and my friends, they come from all over at home for Christmas. And we go to that together as our like friend family to see that movie together. And there's not one person that doesn't cry during that movie. And not to have that last year, that was one of the hardest things not to have. But I don't even want to watch it on DVD. I own it. I have it on VHS colorized. Don't even want to watch it. I want to see it. It's like Jaws. I want to see Jaws with an audience. I want everybody to cheer at the end. I want them all to jump when Ben Gardner's head floats by. I want that experience, and you can't fake that at home. You can't, it's just not the same. And I actually dragged my parents to see Jaws at the theater this year, and I never watched Jaws with them when I was a kid. It was not their kind of movie, and they loved it. They were cheering. They were laughing. My mother jumped when Ben Gardner's head. I mean, I'm like literally leaning closer to her as I'm like trying to time out the seconds because I know she's going to jump. And I'm like, am I going to grab her or am I just going to let her jump? And I just let her jump. So, for me, that was more fun watching it with them. They may have seen it in the theater. I don't know. It was the year I was born. So did they go? Probably not. But it was just fun to have that experience with, here I am, the child, taking the parents to see the movie for the first time in the theatrical experience, and they loved it. So, I mean, you can't get that with, hey, everybody, we're going to watch Jaws at home. Not the same, because, the woman screaming 3 aisles over is going to amplify everything, and we're all going to laugh because she screamed, but we're all terrified too, but we're still laughing and enjoying the moment that we all just shared. That's not at home on your video.
I'll give you another perfect example of a movie you have to watch with people is Titanic.
Oh,
and the direction I'm going with that. You got to bring the girl who's never seen the movie. That way, by the end, when she starts crying, probably why that movie made over $2 billion. And you're kind of anxious, so I'm going to let you take.
I saw it. I think I saw it 2 times for sure, maybe 4 in the theater. And I saw it before the hype. Like I was like, oh, I like James Cameron. He's a great director. I'm going to go see this. You know, I understand. I've seen almost every sci-fi TV show that's involved a time traveler going to the Titanic. So I really wanted to see it. And I came out there and I'm crying and I'm weeping and the whole bit. So then I went with my girlfriend and then we took her roommate. So I definitely went 3 times. And it was fun because whatever movie came out after that, when it really kicked in, like sold out shows, people lined up getting in, lined up getting out. Whatever movie came out after that, I was standing there waiting for somebody at the concession stand and looking at all these women just crying their eyes out. And I was like, that was so a month ago for me. I'm like so over it at this point. But I wanted to say, my wife and I, we went and saw Titanic in 3D when it came out in 2012.
Yeah.
And it was mega 3D. Like we had these special glasses that you could get that you had to like center yourself. There's like a little sensor right here. So if you kind of went like this, you weren't centered with the screen. You didn't see the 3D properly. You had to be centered. And there was only like 2 or 3 other people in the theater, and we are rooting for Billy Zane. Like I'm standing up and cheering. I'm like, shoot him! And I'm just like screaming. I said, Billy Zane is the hero of this movie because I've seen it so many times, and it's become such a cliche. I still think it's amazing what Cameron did, and I have nothing against him for anything that he said afterwards. I understood I'm king of the world. He was excited. He did what he did. From a guy who went from truck driver to winning the Academy Award for Best Picture, kudos to him. But it's on Pluto TV from time to time, and I kind of switch over and just kind of like, are we at the Billy Zane fun part yet? Roses is pleased. What to do? The little things like that. And, I'd hope you'd come to me last night, which means clearly they had slept together before. So, you're just kind of like, they're not even married yet and they already slept together. And, all kinds of little things like that I really like to look into. But I also, I don't know, I could never watch Titanic again and be happy. That last time around, rooting for Billy Zane in 3D. And I would tell him to this day. He was at a convention not too far from here. And I really wanted to go just to have him say, can you sign my copy of Demon Knight? And by the way, I root for you in Titanic whenever I have to watch it.
I got a copy of Sniper on DVD lying around that I would get him to sign.
Sniper. Sniper. Tom Berenger.
The first movie wasn't that bad, and then it kind of went off the rails.
It gets worse. Yeah,
as soon as it went straight to video, that was the death.
That's the joy of that was the joy of the video store. You're like, they made a Sniper 4? You're like, what?
And they brought back Billy Zane?
Yeah, you're like, Billy Zane must have been really bored. You know what I mean? Like he's in it for like 2 minutes. That's it. Like kind of like Smokey and the Bandit 3.
Yeah. So I think that 3D is actually a pretty good segue to ask your opinion on 3D as a whole. Obviously, operating a movie theater, because we've seen it come up, and it's not a new fad. I mean, most people, it really boomed in the 50s, I believe. Was it House of Wax?
House of Wax is more the boom of 3D. There is a movie that predates it, and I'm sorry, I should have looked it up, but there is a movie that came out in 3D right before House of Wax. But House of Wax was the movie to get people into the theater. And you watch it now, and it's very in your face, the 3D. Like, there's things in there that have nothing to do with the plot that gets you into the 3D. And I'd say probably a better one is Creature from the Black Lagoon. That was released in 3D. And it is a movie that is a lot more fun to watch. Even though it's in black and white, it still has great scenes in it. And it's a movie that we can actually run at the Colonial in 3D. Because of the 3D capabilities and the projectors, there are certain types of 3D that we can do, like It Came From Outer Space, which is, we've done that, and Creature from the Black Lagoon at Blobfest in 3D. And it's fun. It's kitschy, but like to run Friday the 13th Part 3 or was it Freddy's Dead? We can't do that. It's a different type of 3D. So we stay away from it altogether. It's a weird process. Sometimes you need 3 cameras, sometimes you don't. And as a fad goes, for me, I appreciate it. I also think at times, for a while there, was it shot in 3D? Because that became a big issue. And then it was fake 3D, like Fomax. It was fake IMAX. And was it worthwhile? Was it just expanded into IMAX? Or are they just putting it on the IMAX screen and charging you more money? Which Regal did a few times to me. And I'm like, this isn't IMAX. This thing's not up here. You know, I saw Skyfall in IMAX. I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX. I saw Inception in IMAX. I will never watch Inception again. It will never be the same experience as it was in IMAX. I own it. I tried to watch it. I'm like, this isn't the same. This is boring. Like the screen doing that whole thing and the world bending doesn't do nothing for you on TV. In IMAX, totally different thing. So was it shot on IMAX? That's another big thing for me. Was it shot in 3D or was it converted in 3D? That became a whole other thing. And eventually, I think diehard cinephiles just got sick of it. And I also saw it as a price gouge. Like, okay, so I can go see it in regular version, the way it was shot for X amount of dollars, or I can go see it in fake 3D as it was converted and pay an extra 5 to 6 for the same movie. Like, do I really care if Captain America's shield's going to hit me in the face? No, I just want to watch the movie. So, and does a movie like Avatar, which I did see in 3D and in IMAX, that mattered. That was a bigger experience. I didn't think the movie was that story-wise was anything new.
It was just Dances with Wolves in Space is all it is.
Thank you. That's the first thing I said when I saw it at Comic-Con.
I mean, James Cameron in 2014, came out in an interview and basically admitted that. So those aren't my words.
Well, I was at Comic-Con the year before it came out, and they gave us these special, I still have them somewhere, these special weird bubble glasses to watch this in Hall H. And I'm sitting there, and I'm with my I'm with a friend of mine, and she is one of the biggest James Cameron fans ever. And we were sitting there and we're watching it, and this is like our first shot at it, and we're seeing his clip, and it's over, and Cameron's done, he's talking, and he walks away, and we're both reporters. We were there for websites that we worked at. And I turned to her and I said, and knowing she was a fan, what'd you think? She goes, that's Dances with Wolves. And I said, yeah, that's what I thought. And then, I got back and I went to that 15-minute clip thing that they did that you had to like go special. And I went to what I found out was a fake IMAX. It wasn't a real IMAX screen because the dimensions weren't right, but they were projecting IMAX, which was like, so you're lying to me. You're trying to steal my money. And I went there and I watched that full 15 minutes and I went, oh my God, it totally is Dancing with Wolves. So, opening night, midnight show, I'm there. I'm ready for Dances with Wolves in Space at this point because I'm like, there's nothing that's going to tell me it's not. And then the projector didn't work. An hour later, they're giving us free tickets for the next IMAX show. And they were running like all kinds of problems. And I'm like, wow, this movie just, and then the movie was over and I was like, yep, Dances with Wolves. And then my wife goes, that was Fern Gully. And I go, what? She goes, that was more Fern Gully than Dances with Wolves. So then I had to watch Fern Gully and I was like, what?
Oh, that just brought back some painful memories. You talking about the IMAX projector burning out. I went to go see Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2, IMAX 3D screening. And just prior, they were doing a screening of Transformers Dark of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it came out around the same time. Apparently, the projector had burned out about halfway through. And then they got it back up after about an hour. They finished the movie, gave everybody free tickets. We didn't get into the IMAX theater until 11:50 at night. Movie starts at midnight.
Yeah.
And the people who paid for the 2D screening got to go in at 9 p.m. and we're all sitting over there, obviously fuming because, we're paying like $18-20 a person to go to this IMAX 3D screening.
And that's the other thing. Is it really worth the $20? Like, was it worth it?
Oh, no, it wasn't.
No. And that becomes another issue that people start to say, they look and go, is the gimmick worth it? Is it that whatever that new 3-screen thing is going
I
on?
think that's that Screen X. I think Joe showed it in his recent video.
Yeah.
Where
So
you have the one in front and the two on the sides. I
yeah.
saw that and it's like, why would anyone want to watch a movie like this?
Well, I've never seen a movie like that as they just announced it, but it totally reminded me of going to Disney World and seeing like, not just Disney World. I think I went to Paramount, whatever Paramount's theme park was. They had for a while down in Virginia. They had a Days of Thunder thing that was like that, and you sat in a car, and it had the 3 screens, so you could look in 3 different directions of what was going on.
Once again, guys, I scoured the internet during the editing process of this, and the theme park that Bob was talking about was Kings Island, and I actually found the commercial from the early to mid 90s promoting the very Days of Thunder ride that he's talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and show this commercial. Please forgive the quality. It was obviously recorded onto a VHS tape, and that was obviously converted into digital, but we're going to go ahead and watch that commercial and then get right back into the interview.
Looking for some real excitement? How about a little drive in the park? Beginning April 9th, Paramount's Kings Island puts you in the driver's seat of the ultimate racing simulator, Days of Thunder. A 200-mile-an-hour ride on the Ragged Edge. Coming April 9th to Paramount's Kings Island. The only place thrills are Paramount.
Now, save a full $5 with a coupon from McDonald's.
What's going on? Disney World in Japan at Epcot had a thing where you were floating on in China. I'm sorry if I said Japan. It was in China. You were floating down one of the big rivers in China, and you could look in any direction. And I'm like, this is the same thing. Like, except at Disney World, I stood there like this and looked in any direction. Here, you're trying to show me a movie that's like that. Like, how am I supposed to pay attention to? The camera is showing us what the director and the storytellers want us to see. When you're showing me extra stuff, like if I'm watching Star Wars that way, am I supposed to look over here and see who's on my wing? Who's over here flying next to me? Am I supposed to be looking for more TIE fighters? Is there anything there anyway? Did the director even intend for that to happen?
A movie I can see working on Screen X. Do you remember the movie Hardcore Henry? Came out a few years ago.
Yes, I do.
It was entirely in first person.
Yeah.
I can see Screen X working for that because, especially if you're a gamer, because you're used to like looking around everywhere to see enemies coming at you. So I can see it working for that. But you know, would it work for Star Wars? Unless if it's a cockpit view, no.
Right, and that's part of it. Like the gimmick is great, but you're just trying to get more money out of me. And you know, I think. You know, some of the audience, they just want to go in, they want to watch their movie, they want to have a good time, a good experience, which the theater can't guarantee. They can't say the movie's great, the movie's good. Sometimes the movie's crap. But
sometimes that one guy's cell phone goes off.
Yeah.
And ruins the tension.
And I'll say that, and I can't say that, you know, every movie's great. There's other movies that are crap. Every movie means something different to everyone. So I may love a film, you may hate that exact same film. Your experience with said film could be totally different than mine. It could be you had a low point in your life and that movie spoke to you and it elevated you to a new place. Flip flop, could have the worst possible day, could have been the greatest movie ever. That movie just sits sour with me forever and I never want to see it again. So there's lots of things that can shape someone's experience. Just let the movie be what it is and not add all of these gimmicks. If 3D is a gimmick that will enhance the film itself, like Avatar, it made you feel like you could reach further and further in. You know, I saw A Nightmare Before Christmas in 3D, and oh my God, did it really enhance like the miniatures and the animation? And I felt the depth of field was better than anything I had experienced. And granted, the first time I saw it was on film, it was in the 90s. And now I'm watching it somewhere in the 2000s, probably 2004 for the 20th anniversary. And it made the movie alive again for me, and where I had seen it on VHS and DVD ever since. So it's one of those films that, you know, that was an interesting, fun experience for me, added to the movie that I had already seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because something else with 3D is you can always tell the movies that were shot with 3D in mind, and they're always horrible every time you try to rewatch them. Like I know I'm going to show my age here, but like Spy Kids 3 was
Yeah,
the
that's
whole
3D
big
movie,
gimmick
yeah.
was 3D, and you have the frogs landing on the screen. It's supposed to look like glasses are being cracked. You have all the gears, the nuts and bolts that are flying at you. The life bar like sticking up and out.
Yeah,
Try watching that in 2D. It doesn't work.
One of the Harry Potters had, I think it might have been 3 or 4, had some CD3 scenes where you had to put your glasses on at a certain point, and Superman Returns did the same thing. Like you had to put your like a little thing popped up and you had to put your glasses on. And I'm like, but the whole movie's not 3D. So like this is
same thing.
And then it takes time to adjust your eyes to what's happening. So, you almost need to put them on beforehand and then adjust. It doesn't work.
Yeah, the same thing happened when I wanted to go see Shark Boy and Lava Girl. The whole big thing of that one was also 3D. But it's like, put your 3D glasses on now.
Yeah. You need that time to adjust. There was a movie called Metal Storm. And Metal Storm had a trailer for it in front of Jaws 3D. And the reason why they did that was so that everybody could adjust their eyes for the trailer of Metal Storm for Jaws. It gave people enough time to say, okay, this is 3D and this is what I'm going to be seeing. But Metal Storm by itself, terrible movie. Horrible movie. Kelly Preston movie, one of her first.
I also remember, do you remember Smell-O-Vision? Robert Rodriguez tried to bring that in.
I remember, I sort of. And there's a whole William Castle era of gimmicks, like The Shocker and all, The Tingler, all those kind of movies where he added those extra dimensions to things. I appreciate it. It would have been fun in the time of it to experience it, but it hasn't endured. It's something that we do celebrate at Blobfest from time to time. If we show one of those William Castle movies, we try to bring that element of fear or that weird thing that pops out, or, a skeleton slides, over everybody's head from the balcony all the way down to the stage again. So we do try it, but, at the time, all of those things were created to combat television. And that's one of the things in your graph. You can see it. You had the Depression. Everybody was, needed to go out. They needed air conditioning. They needed heating. They needed break. Movies barely cost anything because they were trying to get you in to sell you food and things. And then with the dawn of television, all of a sudden, these catalog titles are like booming on television. Now you can stay home and watch a movie. But again, the theaters drew people back with the gimmicks and the 3D. And then it became a split. It became the teenagers became the reason to go to the movies. Older people weren't going. It wasn't you dressed up and went to the movies like you're going to the theater. The teenagers were going as a place to make out, a place to escape from their parents. Will something like that draw people back in again? It maybe the last almost 2 years, maybe a reason to go to the movies again is reason enough. The last Star Wars movie came out in December, right before the pandemic. It would have been interesting to see if they would have held it, how long they would have held it for, and the reception of it's not everybody's favorite Star Wars movie. So if you would have waited an extra 2 years for that, what would have that been people's impression of that movie? I saw the movie and then knew in 2 months I was going to be sent a copy by Disney. There it was. So, I didn't go like The Force Awakens like 3 or 4 times to see it in the theater. I saw The Rise of Skywalker once. And then there's your window, as you were talking about earlier, your same day things. The windows used to be 90 days? And those windows keep getting smaller and smaller. And now we're at same day. And without
I'm actually old enough to remember a time when the windows were like 6 to 9 months, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Where the movie would come out in theaters. Now, granted, it would leave after 3 months, but it would not come to home video for at least 6 months. And God forbid if it was a Christmas movie, you were waiting a year. Well, so if you wanted to go see the movie, you went to the movie theater. Otherwise, you're waiting 6 to 9 months. Especially if it was like Star Wars, episodes 1, 2, or 3. Episode 3 in particular, it's like you're waiting almost a year. To see it. So
there's movies you can cite that it's the dumbest reason they've ever released it. It was like Gremlins is a summer movie, and it's so that it could have a VHS Christmas release.
Didn't that also happen with Batman?
Yeah, Batman Returns, same deal. They want to double dip.
Guys, as you know by now, I have scoured the internet and I actually found the advertisements that I was thinking of with regards to Batman 89 being a Christmas release, and I even found the ad that Bob was talking about with Batman Returns being the Christmas release. So we're going to go ahead and play those right now, and then right afterwards, get right back into the interview.
Wrap up the holidays with the perfect gift. Give them what they want. The movie of the decade.
Who's this guy?
The smash hit of the season.
I'm Batman. Can somebody tell me what kind of world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press?
Batman on video cassette. The gift you want to give. The gift they want to get. Specially priced at stores everywhere. This holiday season,
Meow.
we've got the perfect gift. So follow the signs that point in one direction to get Batman Returns, affordably low priced wherever video is sold.
Double dip. They want to get all that money, and then you look at something like right now, you look at James Bond. Guess when James Bond comes out? December 21st. It's already done. It's already on. Now it's streaming. Now you can pay $20 to stream it. And it'll be out on
Shang-Chi
Redbox.
just came out onto Disney Plus within the last week.
Yep. And what was that? 2 months?
Yeah, it came out August.
Yeah, it came out Labor Day weekend.
Okay,
So
yeah.
if that was
Labor
still
Day
August, I don't remember. But if that was still August or the end of August, and then yeah, it's already out. So what? Eternals is going to be out January 15th on Disney Plus. So, and some of these people will wait. That's another issue that we deal with. We're looking at, there was one movie we're thinking about getting at the theater right before Christmas. I'm gonna have to get some water.
All right.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
There was one movie we were looking at right before Christmas, and it's got like a week long, week or two before Netflix. If you own Netflix and you know it's coming and you've saved it, are you really going to spend that money, or are you just going to say, I'll wait? A lot of people just wait.
There's also that Pixar movie too, whatever it's called, is that Encanto?
Yeah.
That they want on Disney Plus for like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day.
Yeah. So, if you've got 4 kids, you already own Disney Plus, are you going to spend that money? If you're an animation enthusiast, you're going to go and see it the day it comes out. But if you're an animation enthusiast, you probably already have Disney Plus. And here's my other thing, and we deal with this a lot. We look at the time of year, we look at what's going on, what are people doing? Again, football season, how the Phillies doing, that kind of thing. Like first year we had Horror Bowl, we said if the Eagles go to it was the year after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I think. Oh. And we said, if the Eagles go, nobody's going to come. We had 200 people show up on Super Bowl Sunday to watch 3 horror movies. So we were like, yeah, we got a winner here. We're going to do this again. But you have to look at those things and go, like, your time crunch of the holidays is, there's not enough time to do everything. You have parties, you have family get-togethers, you have to do your shopping, your regular everyday life of paying bills and going to work. And then come January, you have nothing to do. That's why they're all depressed. So now, unless it's an epic release of something like Star Wars or another big holiday, Aquaman came out at Christmas, that's a good thing to do after Christmas, after December 25th. You're like, yeah, we're gonna go see Star Wars as a family. I did, went with my parents. But everything before that, it's such a time crunch on you that you really don't have time. So unless you establish in your community or your film lovers annual events, things that people want to come and see, that you're competing against seeing your grandparents. You're competing against, families getting together for the first time. With the kids getting vaccinated, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be like, neither they want to get away from their family, or this is the first time they're going to see their extended family in maybe 2 years. So we have to consider that, and we program things like we have Elf, Christmas Story, Batman Returns, Gremlins, It's a Wonderful Life, White Christmas. We programmed our heavy hitters because we know we'll draw people into those events. And it's become part of their annual tradition. So we become part of their family by doing that. It's something you have to consider. But when it comes to new movies, you can take that chance. You're going to go see something before Christmas. It only has like a 2-week window before it comes to Amazon. No, you're going to watch it in January when you're stuck inside your house, especially if you're Northeaster like I am. You know, you're like, yeah, I'll watch that Becoming Ricardo's movie on Amazon. You know, I'll have time then. Right now, I'd rather go see something that's only going to be in the theaters and maybe be 30 to 60 days out before it goes to Redbox or it goes to the streaming service that I already have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a factor that, you know, I hope Hollywood considers. You know, you're playing chess against someone who you can't see and you have no idea what they're going to do, and you've got to make the best possible move each time. It's very difficult.
And there was a video I made last year, and I titled it "The Death of the Blockbuster." And because you see all these $200 million movies being made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like 2018 or 2019, I don't remember which year, but there was one year where on average one blockbuster came out per week in 2018 or 2019. And it's like, this is just way too much. And the point I made in that is that if you have all these movies being released where you have to make $1 billion just to break even, then it's truly not sustainable. So do you see that affecting the movie theater business as a whole? Because obviously not every movie released is going to make $1 billion when it comes out, even with the hiked ticket prices.
You're right. It can't sustain itself because the audience is, you're competing against yourself in some ways, and you're also competing against everyone else. So if Marvel has a blockbuster, and then the following week Paramount has a blockbuster, is Marvel really going to get that second tier or second round of money from that first group of people who went to see Thor Ragnarok? You know, if they're going to go see Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome from Warner Brothers, or I'm sorry, Mad Max Fury Road from Warner Brothers afterwards, probably should use Avengers Ultron and then Mad Max Fury Road. Are you really going to get that second screening in? You're competing against that. So you're creating, like, yes, Disney made their money, Warner Brothers made their money. Now, I've spent, let's say $30 to see 2 movies. That third week, whatever that third movie is, do I actually have the money? No. So now I'm going to start picking and choosing. It's not like it used to be where movies were like $8 or even $10, where you could say.
I remember when matinees were $4.50.
When they had matinees, they barely have that. Now you gotta be
not anymore. I mean, they still do on weekends, but weekdays they're gone.
Yeah, and some theaters aren't even open. We're not even open Monday and Tuesday anymore. It just wasn't worth it for us to be open to have the staff. So we only do matinees on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and that's it. And that's a matinee show. That's not a matinee ticket price anymore. If you become a member, that enables you to have a discounted price. Which
you're gonna have to expand on that. So what do you mean by memberships?
Well, we have a membership where you become part of the Colonial family, and then you get a discounted ticket price for a lot of our repertory films, and there's other perks that come with it, but then you become a member. So it's not like Movie Pass. We try to do something similar to that, where you would pay $15 for the month, and then you would get a full amount of you get to see every repertory film for $15 for the month, but you had to keep renewing it. It didn't work. We had a couple people that did it. We had other couple people that, they only did it like once or twice. They didn't feel like it was worth it. So with Movie Pass, when it did work, I abused it as much as I could. I went to see stuff I would never see. But my wife and I, we didn't have a son at the time, so we just wanted to go. We just want to go to the movies, and we had to wait so many hours or 24 hours or something to go see the next movie. And then the cards wouldn't work. Then you couldn't get your tickets. And it was just this huge nightmare. And it was just like, I'm done with this. Other people are trying it again. I read a recent article that Movie Pass is going to try and come back. I'm not interested. The nightmare of what I dealt with just trying to get 2 tickets to go see Blockers, which was originally called Cock Blockers, wasn't worth it. I'm like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah, because we also see like AMC A-list even expand into that, but I think you can only go to 3 movies a week.
Yeah, no, it sure maybe I don't know. There's not an AMC near me. I've got to
Mhm.
I got to drive somewhat far, so I'm like, I got a 24, a movie tavern, and my own theater right here. If it's not playing at one of those three, it's got to be something I really, 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 really want to see, especially to be even driving to
Mhm.
Philly to go see something.
Yeah, because what that reminds me of is remember when Silence came out? Martin Scorsese Silence with Andrew Garfield and
Yeah,
Liam Neeson.
yeah.
I remember I actually wanted to go see that, and the local movie theater to me is an AMC. That's all I have in my local area, and I wanted to go see it. But then I actually look at the show times, and it's like the movie's over like an hour and a half away,
Hmm.
and I'm like, do I really want to drive an hour and a half to go see Silence, or can I hold out for 3 months?
And you have to pay to park most of the time.
Yeah.
And if you have to pay to park, that becomes a whole nother factor in your life. Like, are you going to do this? Like, are you really going to bother?
Hmm.
That was one of the things. I used to go down to Philly all the time to see all the stuff I couldn't see because the Colonial at the time was only one screen. So we weren't going to get a lot of the more unique indie films. Like I wanted to see The Road, and The Road wasn't playing at Regal 24. And I wanted to see something else. It's like 13 Assassins. And
Hmm.
and both were playing in Philly at the same theater. And I'm like, well, there's my night. Like to me, it was worth it. I got 2 movies. I had to pay $15 to park, but I got the 2 movies that I wanted to see. So I was good for the week. But still, you have to drive into the city and you have to deal with traffic. And then you're lucky if the parking isn't full because there's a concert or something going on that night close by.
Hmm. Or God
So,
forbid a football game.
a football game, and that becomes a factor. Like that became a factor for me. Are the Eagles playing tonight? Is there a 76ers game? Like, I'm not going to go down into the city on a Monday night when there's football. Forget it. It becomes one of those things where you have to weigh all the other factors. And I think people do that now. And that's one reason why we tried to offer some more blockbuster titles in the last couple of months because we've noticed people walking up. They're walking in from restaurants, and
Hmm.
our community is booming, and we're getting more homes and families. So we're like, okay, now we're offering you a chance to walk 3 blocks to go to the movie where you don't have to pay to park. You just walk right in. So maybe we should have some more, more popular fare besides like art house documentaries, which are great. And it's nice that we can offer that in regards to the 24. But if people aren't driving down to the 24 to spend all that money, maybe we should offer that. And that's what we tried to do. Let's see if it works. We'll see. We'll find out really for sure with Ghostbusters this week.
So you just mentioned the walk-ups, people walking up to the box
Mhm.
office buying the ticket. What we saw over the last few years was theaters transitioning to more of an assigned seating, where you
Mhm.
buy the tickets in advance. Didn't matter if it was a matinee showing or if it was a midnight screening.
Yep.
Did you ever see that working, or did you think it would fall apart?
It's an original European concept. I
Mm-hmm.
experienced it when I went to Bulgaria and I was able to buy tickets and I thought this was the weirdest thing. I had to pick my seat.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that it is fantastic if you want to do it on a movie night where it's everybody wants to see the same movie. So I had my tickets for Star Wars: The Force Awakens like 2-3 months in advance. I knew exactly where I was sitting, what time, where my seat was, and I didn't have to get there 4 hours early. So I'm not sitting up front like this, watching the movie. I'm actually like center aisle, whole bit. I like it when it came to that. Same thing happened to me when I lived in LA. There was a theater called Airmark, and you had to buy your tickets that way. Or was it Landmark? I think Airmark or Landmark. They went out of business. Where you bought your seat and you didn't have to get there early to get your ticket. You knew exactly where you were going to sit. So I saw The Dark Knight Rises that way, and Prometheus. I could spend the time beforehand going to dinner, going to a store. I could participate in the businesses around. I love that concept. I thought it was a great idea. Um, can it really work? I think it's okay on a regular movie, but I think for the epics, for those and the must see, everybody has that movie. That is the movie to go and see it. That is the experience to have for those assigned seats. It enables you to do more with your evening. I like that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to see Moonrise Kingdom and I picked the wrong seat, and all of a sudden I'm all the way up front because I didn't understand how the grid worked on the map. I thought I was in the back row and the front row. So I was like, now I'm stuck with this.
See, I personally defended that practice for like midnight showings because, as you brought up, you don't have to get there 5-6 hours early. When
Right.
I went to go see Deathly Hallows Part 2, I got there about 8.5 hours early because it
Mhm.
was the final Harry Potter movie, and a crap ton of people are going to come out for it. So you better be one of those first people in line. That way you don't get screwed.
Exactly.
Whereas
Exactly.
had the assigned seating been there, it would have been like, whatever. And I brought up earlier about the projector burning out. Nobody
Yep.
would have been pissed off because, okay, I don't have to show up till 11:30, 11:45 anyway, so you can run
Yeah.
a screening up till that point. Does it work for a matinee where only 10 people show up? I
Mhm.
argue no.
Yeah. We have people who will call us or send us messages on social media and say, I bought my tickets for Friday the 13th Part 2. Should I get there early so I get a good seat? And I'm like, we have 600 seats in the theater that we're showing Friday the 13th Part 2 tonight. You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're not going to have to you're going to social distance because there's 600 seats. We've only sold 150 tickets at this point. So everybody has more than 2 seats to themselves. So it all depends on the theater too. Like if you're in some of these theaters are really small, it's like, it's always 150 seats. And you're like, oh, great. I got the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 at, 1 a.m. and I'm competing against everybody else. I'm going to get there as early as possible. The IMAX screen I used to go to was very tight. I didn't like it because if you got sat up front, your eyes were just like huge. So I like to sit in the back row. So I would get there 4 hours early and I would be in the secondary line before the next show would let out or whatever. And then I'd still be like 5th or 6th in line because people would get there so early. And, I don't have that kind of time anymore. I used to sit there and wait for 4 or 5 other people that were still coming from work, who couldn't get out of work. And I'm like, I'll go early and I'll sit there. I took the day off and I'll sit and wait 4 hours. I'm not going to do that now. That's insane. And I'd rather go out and have dinner with my friends. We already have our tickets purchased. So if they enable you to do that, the theater itself should be supportive of the businesses around it and enable you to spend that time and money other places. That's how you grow your community. And that's how you enable the businesses around you to survive and offer, like the IMAX where I'm at, they don't do that. And now all the restaurants, they were closed before the pandemic. So there's no restaurants to eat at the movie theater anymore at the IMAX screen. So you're stuck with, is that good for IMAX? I guess if you really want nachos and a hot dog, if you're going to sit through a 3-hour James Cameron movie. I'd rather have a meal, do the whole night,
Yeah. So I think that this is a perfect segue to that Hollywood Reporter article I sent you that came out of the American film market and how they're talking about streaming. But the big takeaway from that was they were talking about how, movies like The Adam Project that Sean Levy is doing with Ryan Reynolds and Zoe Saldana and Knives Out 2, which are going both directly to Netflix. And we even saw it prior to the pandemic with movies like Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. So, do you think movies like that would have helped out theaters?
I think. I mean, a movie like Knives Out. I think I'm shocked that Netflix is doing that. But then again, the industry has changed to allow companies such as Netflix to actually get recognized by the award ceremonies. So remember before there were movies that were not going to get nominated for anything because they were never theatrically released. Then they caught on and said, okay, well, Netflix is going to have a 2-week run of this movie at theaters. So then, okay, now they're in. But now it's just going to go straight there. So is it more money for Netflix? Yes. Is it more money for the director? Could be. It depends on their deal. A lot of people have said that if they go right to the streaming service, they make more money. They don't have to do the advertising. They don't have to do the publicity. It's out there. Netflix is kind of like Ticketmaster. They're advertising for the band already to the audience that is going to like a similar movie or a similar actor or actress or director, and they're just going to hit you with it that it's coming. you don't really have to worry about drawing people. Zack Snyder's what was that, Army of the Dead or whatever? What was that called?
I know what you're talking about too. I think it was Army of the Dead.
Yeah, Army of the Dead. So that went
Yeah.
right to Netflix, and that was a movie that I watched, and I was like, okay, all right. See it big, it would have been nice, but Netflix, they already got me. I watched a movie and I moved on. I didn't really go back and watch Army of Thieves or whatever it was, but I was just shocked with Netflix. I mean, I was shocked that nobody wanted Rian Johnson's movie because Knives Out was such a good film.
Also, it made a lot of money in theaters at the time.
It did.
$40 million budget, $300 million gross.
Right, and a fantastic cast,
Mhm.
and it got an Academy Award nomination, didn't it? Too. So I think it did, or at least it might have won Best Screenplay or nominated for Best Screenplay.
All right, guys, even I had to look this up myself. Yes, Knives Out was nominated for an Academy Award. It was nominated for Best Original Screenplay. However, it did not win, according to this. I found this on a Rotten Tomatoes. So just to clear it up, yes, it was nominated for. Yes, Knives Out was nominated for an Academy Award, but did not win one.
So I was kind of shocked, and to have James Bond be the star of the sequel again, Daniel Craig.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just surprised me, really, that was one of the first movies I bought, I think right before the pandemic happened, that I didn't even get to see in the theater because my wife was pregnant, so we just bought it straight out because everybody raved about it, and it was totally worth it. But it was, again, it just shocked me that I was like, wow, does Rian Johnson have that much of a stigma to him since the Last Jedi, that even with a hit like Knives Out, nobody wants to make his movie, or at least put it in theaters. So, or was the other factor was the Netflix money that good? Was it that good for him to go, nope, I'm going right there. I'm not going to deal with this crap. So that was shocking. Like, you think Disney would have been all over that, would have been like, oh no, you made a lot of money for us on Star Wars, and Knives Out was such a big, huge hit. We're going to back you up. Like, that's going to be our next big, Touchstone film or Fox Searchlight movie, because they're owned by Disney. To think that they would have done that, but that was
I'm
surprised.
shocked that we haven't heard anything on the Rian Johnson trilogy, though. I mean, say what you want about The Last Jedi, but Knives Out being such a huge hit, why wouldn't you want to give that guy his own trilogy and just let him do whatever the heck he wants?
I mean, I can talk Star Wars for days. We can have our own, thing, but I think there's such a stigma to Johnson's Star Wars movie, and it was such an unofficial restart with what's his name?
Abrams?
With J.J. Abrams, with his film, that there's certain plot points that are just completely not touched upon and not used, and everything in The Rise of Skywalker. I just think Disney I think they are. I mean, Patty Jenkins alone, it looks like she's out of Rogue Squadron.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of looks like Disney is just refocusing on probably, we'll grow these other projects, see how they go. But TV seems to be the world for them to go into. Because, I mean, The Mandalorian was fantastic. Made with no preconceptions, just let these two guys do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And now we're at the Book of Boba Fett.
And remember, Boba Fett was originally supposed to have a movie.
Exactly.
It was originally directed by Josh Trank, yeah. And then they quietly canceled that.
Yeah, they got rid of that after Trank's Fantastic Four just kind of,
Yeah, well, also after he came out on Twitter and slammed his own movie before it released.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of little things like that, but I think Disney is just going to keep Star Wars to the streaming television world. And I think as someone who loves a better story and appreciates everything that goes into Star Wars, the movies are fantastic, don't get me wrong. But when you can really flesh out that world and give a character a chance to develop over time, as soon as they were like, well, shouldn't Obi-Wan be a movie? I'm like, no, it should be a series. Like, give me 12 hours of Obi-Wan, or 10, or it's going to be 6, I think. But I'd rather have 6 hours of Obi-Wan than 2 hours and 20 minutes of no character development, just everything rammed in. I'd rather see characters develop and see a larger reaching story. Tell that with Boba Fett. I don't want to see a 2-hour Boba Fett movie. I want to see Tio Morrison play him for 6 episodes. and we got to see him play him in The Mandalorian, and look what that did to the character, and it just excited people about Star Wars again. Andor is going to be an interesting one. I'd really like to see how that's going to develop, because I thought, was it Diego was, I thought he was good, but I have problems with Rogue One and his character arc. So I'd really like to see. I got where he was coming from, but his mindset of where he was when he's about to pull the trigger on Jyn Erso's father. Yeah.
Galen Erso.
Yeah, I wanted to see Galen Erso get shot, and I kind of believe that at that point, that character was ready to end this. And there's too much of like, oh, I've seen the light, I'm not going to kill anymore.
Another big problem with Rogue One was the fact that every major plot point makes the previous one irrelevant.
Right. Yeah.
So you go, what was Saw Gerrera, right? For beginning, you go try to find Saw Gerrera. They get there. I'm tired of running, and he stays behind. Okay, completely irrelevant. Then you get to the point with Galen Erso, and then instead of sniping him, they decide to bomb him. It's like, okay, why didn't they just do the bombing run to begin with?
Exactly.
And then you go back after the failure. Oh, why should we trust this Jyn Erso? Her father was part of the Empire.
Yeah.
Why did you recruit her in the very beginning of the movie?
Recruit her at the beginning, right? There's lots of little problems with the movie.
But those little problems, they compound, they do add up.
Yes. And so I'd like to see where this character is going to be, how far back he's going to be before he meets Jyn Erso and all the events that lead up to Rogue One. I think it's a fun world to play in, and The Bad Batch has shown us that. And so is Star Wars Rebels, which is a fantastic series. Like, if you love Star Wars and you don't watch the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, you've really missed out. So I don't know how we got there, but here we are. Here we are.
So getting back to where we are. So the point I was trying to make was, like, these movies that cost anywhere from like 40 to 70 million, The Atom Project, Knives Out 2, Extraction, would that have helped movie theaters in the long run versus just making a bunch of $200 million movies and hoping for the best? Like I said, if every movie has to make $1 billion, then it's not sustainable. You and I agree on that.
Yeah, it's not. And it also becomes blockbuster fatigue. Like, there's so many things that go into the blockbuster itself. And I like to cite Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 with this.
Mm-hmm.
I opened up my Netflix envelope, and there was an advertisement for Spider-Man 3 in theaters. And I'm thinking, like, do I really need this? Do I really need to be... Now, granted, I'm a Spider-Man fan. I named my son Peter. So do I really need this advertisement inside my Netflix? Like, Netflix, give me something that's coming on DVD or that I haven't seen. But here's Sony paid you to put this in my Netflix DVD to not watch Netflix, to go watch a movie at the theater, which to me has never made sense to me. But it was everywhere. It's on everything. And that was still at a time where there was a Happy Meal toy and there was a tie-in and this and that. And George Lucas is the king of that, because he would release a book, a toy, a video game, and the movie all within like 1, 2, 3, 4, but movie is the last thing on the list. So was such a blockbuster hype of everything, and you're exhausted by it. So when you get to Age of Ultron, you really don't care too much about what's after it because you're exhausted from the hype, and then the movie wasn't that good, and you're like, do I really want to invest in the next? What is the next one? And you're just like, okay, there's another one.
Next movie's Ant-Man.
Yeah,
excitement.
You're like, okay, well, I just had like 7 Avengers. Now I'm just gonna have Ant-Man by himself. Like, so you get fatigued by it, and then maybe you're like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go watch something that has nothing to do with any of that, and then you discover Mad Max Fury Road, which is a fantastic visual, treat in relation to watching the Avengers of Age of Ultron again. You're just like, I'm gonna go see Mad Max Fury Road like 3 or 4 more times. I don't even need to have the sound on to understand what the hell's going on here. So there's, there is a blockbuster fatigue. I think it's very relevant, but at the same time, you could say, well, why would I want to go see Thor Ragnarok? I hated the first 2, and now Thor was in the last Avengers movie. He's not even in this. Nobody else. Oh, the Hulk. And then Thor Ragnarok is probably, arguably, the best Marvel movie, of them all. It's the most rewatchable one, in my opinion, at least. And it's fantastic. But I went like 2 weeks later after I heard all this buzz because I was like, I didn't like Thor 1 and 2 all that much. And everybody's like, no, this is the greatest movie. This is the greatest Marvel movie to date. So you can suffer, but then again, you're looking at Joss Whedon in relation to Taika Waititi. You're looking at two different directors at two different ends of their game right now. And one with something more to prove on a larger scale than Joss Whedon had at the time. So, that's also, nobody cared about Thor 3. Everybody cared about Avengers 2. So there's so many factors that fall into it. But
And now I hate to play devil's advocate, but you're bringing up blockbuster fatigue. But we have the article, but we do have the box office bounding back. Whereas previously reported in back in Deadline back in July that they were saying that that it wouldn't return until like 2024. But now we're seeing Halloween Kills was a major hit despite day and date release.
Yeah,
we saw what's another one? No Time to Die grossed over $500 million around the world. We saw Shang-Chi become a huge hit.
Yep.
So you could make the argument: is there really blockbuster fatigue? But the ultimate question, though, coming from a movie theater guy, is this sustainable?
I think there's less theaters now. I think that we're gonna, will new movie theaters open up after the pandemic? I don't think so. I think the industry is going to stay where it is. I think that once people feel more comfortable going back out and feel safer, I think the older audience who likes to go to the movies will start to return. We really don't see, with French Dispatch, we started to see over 65 coming back in. So we started to see that again. But Wes Anderson is a quirky audience. You can't do a new Wes Anderson every week. So I think everything probably will resettle itself in some new sort of fashion that we will overanalyze and say because of the pandemic, movies aren't making the same amount of money because now the theaters are not showing the new Marvel movie on 11 screens the night it came out. They're not going to take that chance. So I think the industry it'll change, it'll bounce back, it'll be something different. But I think people have also become very accustomed to sitting at home, not paying out the nose for food and snacks and everything else. And also I think that the movies are getting longer, and that's becoming a very tough part. Like Marvel is trying to give us they're
trying to do what they did in the 1950s with like Ben-Hur and The Longest Day.
But what they're not doing, what those movies did do is they gave you an intermission, and they gave you an act. They ended an act with a finale that made you want to come back after a 15 to 20 minute intermission, reload your popcorn and soda, and come back, go to the bathroom, take a break. They're not adding that act break, and they need to. If they're going to give us a 2.5 hour movie like Eternals, that's all new characters, and you're expecting us to come in because you've got the word Marvel in front of it. That worked for Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm not hearing my friends and people say, "Oh my God, Eternals redefined the superhero genre for me," and anything like that. They're not saying. I'm not hearing that. So if Disney and the other studios like Bond was 2.5 hours, give us that act break. Give us that Lawrence of Arabia moment,
and remember, James Bond movies at one point in time never exceeded 2 hours.
Yeah.
The longest was Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan started pushing it.
Yeah.
And I think Die Another Day was the longest prior to...
Was it Spectre was the longest? No, Skyfall was the longest. Then
it was Skyfall. Then it was No Time to Die.
Right.
But I think Die Another Day was the longest at one point.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And
hey, dumbass host, Die Another Day was not the longest James Bond movie. It actually was On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then Skyfall beat it by 1 minute. Then Spectre beat Skyfall. Then No Time to Die beat Spectre. So, I don't know where in the fuck you got this idea from. I don't know, maybe lack of sleep, maybe the fact that you couldn't remember the runtime of all 25 James Bond movies, which is completely understandable. There's 25 movies in that franchise, and, God help you, sometimes you can't keep that shit straight. But, probably look stuff up for 5 fucking minutes before you make a claim like Die Another Day was the longest James Bond movie, you fucking dumbass.
I don't know. It seems like bad things are always happening to me. Like I have bad luck or something.
Son, you don't have bad luck. The reason that bad things happen to you is because you're a dumbass.
That movie is terrible. Oh my God! Like,
I don't mind Die Another Day.
Oh, it's so gimmicky. It's just ridiculous. And then like Skyfall is it's like The Dark Knight. It's just a good movie. Yes, it's a James Bond movie, but it's just a good movie. Like you want to like. I don't feel it's the long as they say it is.
See, I can rewatch Die Another Day despite its silliness because I'm a much bigger fan of the older James Bond movies, so they were always ridiculous.
Right.
So if you like that aspect of James Bond, you'll like Die Another Day.
I'd love to know Live and Let Die. I'd love to know how long Live and Let Die is because there's like a 20-minute boat chase in that movie. And it's just like we ran it a couple of years ago, and it's so long. You're like, oh my God, how much longer is it? And I'd love to know how long Live and Let Die is in relation to Skyfall or even the new one. But I mean, I grew up with James Bond on TV. Like, I think the first James Bond movie I think I ever saw Connery in the theater was probably Goldfinger at the Colonial. Might have been the first time I actually saw that. I mean, I did see View to a Kill, Octopussy, The Living Daylights, and then all the Pierce Brosnans. I didn't see License to Kill. No, I didn't see License to Kill. The Living Daylights, I think it was. But I did see Bond growing up as a kid. I may have even seen Moonraker. And I did see For Your Eyes Only. So that's the first James Bond movie I saw in the theater was For Your Eyes Only. But I grew up with them on TV. So they were always over 2.5 hours because of TNT. They would just give you the commercials and then advertise the next 3 nights of Bond for you. And you're like, ooh, I really want to watch, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I think might have been the first longest Bond film. I think that one is pretty long, but well worth it. Yeah. So I think the longer the movie is, they're going to have to start creating these act breaks, which theaters don't want. Like having Eternals and Bond at the same time. They're both 2.5 hour movies. And we had that for like one weekend. And it was rough because you're trying to figure out how many times you can show a movie during a day, but you've got 2.5 hour epic, and it's really, really rough.
Do you remember what movie studios did back in the late 90s where every movie had to be like 88 minutes long? Because they figured out that was like the perfect runtime. You get the most amount of show times in a single day, and a lot of movies suffered as a result of it.
Yep.
A perfect example was Star Trek Insurrection. That could have benefited from 2 hours.
Oh my God, there's so much wrong with Insurrection.
Yeah.
So much wrong.
I know Joe ranks that movie pretty high, but there's a lot of issues.
There's a lot of things you can't rank. You can't go off of Joe's. I tried to understand Joe's mentality. You can't go off of Joe's mentality. Sometimes he and I are like right here, it's I, and other times, like I'll watch a movie and go, God, I love that. Joe's gonna hate that, and then I find out he liked it. I'm like, what? But that's not a Joe movie. Why do you like that? So yeah, Joe's always. That's why I like being on Joe's show because it was fun to talk to him because you could play back and forth. Like he and his wife loved Wonder Woman. I hated that movie. No, I knew she loved it, and I just had to let her go and say what she did about it. And I was just like citing everything that was wrong with that movie, and I'm just like, no, this is a '90s superhero movie in the worst way.
See, I would think for a movie theater, though, getting back to what you just said about, theaters don't want act breaks. I thought you would want it to sell like more concessions.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like some theaters. I remember theaters were toying with it. My uncle ran a movie theater for a while. And he said, like, they stopped, like, one of the Harry Potters. I think it might have been 4. They stopped Harry Potter and put in their own intermission to sell more concessions. And they had to tell people they were going to do that because one, it's not in the movie. It's not supposed to be part of the movie. And two, they just felt like, look, we've got people who are not going to come in, but they feel as if it could happen. You know, like people are just like, I need to go to the bathroom. I just drank a 2-liter bottle of Coke. I need to go pee. So it's one of those things that you got to worry about. Like when we show Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, we've shown it's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. We leave in the intermission. We even have our original Lawrence of Arabia like intermission that we use for our marathons and such. So there's little things like that that I think that the industry has to make movies an event again. And then if you are going to have a 2.5-hour movie, give us a 10-minute intermission. I mean, maybe the longer the movie, the longer the intermission. Sell the concessions, give people a chance to like, oh my God, I'm watching this, and go. You know, give them that moment. Instead of having a montage or just music on the screen, have scenes from the movie that now's the time to take a picture of the screen and you can put it up, you know, highlights from the first part of the movie that you saw. Also, and don't give us, if you really want to get into it, don't give us 30 to 40 minutes of trailers.
Oh yeah.
And if you do, say what time the movie actually starts. And I know that's horrible for some of us who get early and like to get our seats and then somebody comes in. But when you're sitting through 30 minutes of trailers, and I understand, like, you know, the studio wants to advertise this movie in front of people. We live in a world,
if I'm not mistaken, don't theaters like make money off of showing those trailers as well?
They do. We're guilty of running screen ads for like a car or shoes or something like that. You know, we make extra money off of that. But you know, it's also you know, the longer you're there. So like we looked at it and like figured out like Bond with trailers is like so many minutes. So we cut it down to like the minimum of how many trailers we can actually show before Bond. And it just made it quicker. And then also you can pad it a little bit if you need to fill out your time schedule to get your next movie in. French Dispatch is only so many minutes. So now we'll add an extra trailer or two here, right here, and just round it out. So it gives people 2 hours instead of an hour and 48 minutes. So they got 12 minutes of trailers. But we make our own trailers. We pull them from the internet and stuff, or download them from the different companies and run those so that we can advertise our own movies. Because, you know, we're going to show White Christmas. So if we've got a movie like French Dispatch, we're going to put White Christmas in front of it. We did that with Sabrina. We had a nice turnout for Sabrina, the original with Audrey Hepburn and William Holden and Humphrey Bogart. But we advertised that in front of the French Dispatch because that's an older audience is going to come and see that film. So then here's another movie that's going to, oh, cool. I can go and see that if they say cool. So we try to do those things to enable people to say, hey, this is what also is coming to the Colonial.
And if you're going to do longer trailers, do what the Deadpool 2 trailer did in front of Logan.
Exactly.
That was a nice surprise, and it didn't exactly advertise the movie, but it made fun of Superman.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to my Spider-Man thing. Like, what amazes me is there's such a hype for a trailer sometimes. When if you just would have said Star Wars: The Force Awakens with a date, the sequel to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Instead of the teaser trailer for the teaser trailer.
Yeah, the teaser for the teaser. You know, 2 seconds or 10 seconds, and then there's a whole hype. Then the trailer comes on, and I mean, literally, when I was at work that day, nobody did anything. We literally stopped. The whole office stopped, and people gathered around other people's monitors to watch it. And then they all went back to their seats and then watched it again. So it's. Did I need to be in the movie theater for that? No, it was released on the internet. So why do we have all these trailers for films coming out? Like I went to see. When I had Movie Pass, for some reason I was stuck in this like weird Zen moment of whatever the next Mission Impossible was. The Mission Impossible trailer, it might have been Ghost Protocol or something, was in front of every movie I went to see when I had Movie Pass. I did not want to see that movie ever. And I still haven't. And I'm like, it might not have been Ghost Protocol. It was whatever.
I think it was Fallout.
Maybe
when you're talking Movie Pass, I think it was Fallout.
And I was like, 6. I'm never going to see this movie. There is no reason that at the same movie theater in 6 different movies, I need to see the new Mission Impossible trailer. Like, really, you have no other trailers. like to the point where I was angry. My wife's like, you can't go up and tell the theater manager that you're upset that they're running the same trailer because you're here every other day because of Movie Pass. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that trailer again. But I think that the theater should tell you what time the movie actually starts and what time the trailer starts. Not the 20 with Maria Menounos or whatever her name is, who comes in and talks.
Newbie or something like that.
Yeah, and goes through all that stuff. I don't even want to see that anymore because they're advertising shows for free fall, and that's where the theaters make their extra money. Though they're charging for concession, and then they're charging for this, the movie minute beforehand, which is 20 minutes. And then there's 30 minutes of trailers plus a car ad.
Mm-hmm.
It's very frustrating, but that's how they're going to survive. And that's sad. But at least let the audience, I guess they can't say, oh, if you come in after the car ad, this is when it's going to be, because then nobody's going to come in. I've already done it. I was like, I'm going to play the game. I'm going to wait till 10 minutes after the movie starts and then walk in. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to miss 3 trailers for a movie I've already seen, for movies I've already seen, or I've already seen on the internet because I watched it the day it was released on YouTube, or I saw it during the Super Bowl. Why? The industry competes against itself. And for people who really love movies, we get very frustrated and angry. And then this is blockbuster fatigue. You know what I mean? Like, I've already seen the trailer. And I knew people who didn't watch the Star Wars trailer at all. Like, I got the date. I got my ticket. I know. I don't need to see anything. And I kind of felt that way with the last Spider-Man trailer. Was it really necessary to show me all of those villains? No, you already had me. And there it was again. I'm like, why? Do we have to be spoon-fed that much?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've been going for a little over 2 hours, but to tie this, no, that's fine. Like I said, we could tangent off in whatever direction we wanted to. I have a base structure, and as long as we stick to it, who cares? But tying this all the way back to the beginning of you talking about like the action block and the horror block once again. Do you feel that movie theaters have to adapt to something like that in order to survive? Or can they hold out and just, release all these major blockbusters?
I don't think the chains are going to go that way. I think the smaller theaters, the repertory theaters, I think you have to do it. I think you have to offer that old-timey experience. There's lots of theaters in the area. In our area, Ambler, the County Theater, they do offer repertory shows. And repertory shows give you that feeling of nostalgia. If you hit the right movie, you can really have a nice crowd, nice audience that's going to come in and enjoy your theater. And then they're going to see the other things that you offer. So you're kind of, you're hitting them with the nostalgia button to give them a great experience, maybe a first-time experience of something, a great memory of seeing something. And then, you're also going to show the French Dispatch. Well, I wanted to see that. So that looks good. And I'm going to come back here because I enjoyed myself. I don't think Regals or AMC's, I don't think they can supply that. It's very generic. It's very, like a hotel room, it's very wash, rinse, and repeat. I can tell you where I saw the first Harry Potter for the first time, and the experience I had for it, and it was at a Regal. But, at the same time, I saw 20 other movies in that exact same theater. Exact same screen. So it's all different. I think that the smaller theaters, the independents, they're going to have to survive by offering the repertory films. They can't, the studios aren't going to, I don't think the studios are going to want to compete at Regal, because if you offer Raiders of the Lost Ark versus the latest Ryan Reynolds action movie, they're not going to want to do that. They're going to be like, Raiders is going to really hurt our Saturday night draw. We're going to make money, but the studio's going to want more money. And then the studio won't say, okay, let's say it's Ryan Reynolds' new action movie and it's also Paramount. They're not going to let us do a Paramount movie against a Paramount movie. And we've already had a couple of instances where Disney doesn't want to compete against Sony on a night. They need their 2 shows of Eternals. Even though we're going to do a sneak preview of Ghostbusters, Disney still wants their 2 shows. So, they're all competing against each other, and then they're competing against themselves too. So Disney won't let us run Disney repertory films, anything from the Fox titles. So I can't run Big Trouble in Little China right now because I've got Eternals. And now I have to decide whether or not is Eternals really worth it? Was it worth it when I could have run The Sound of Music, Big Trouble in Little China, Aliens, Napoleon Dynamite? It wasn't.
Something that gets me remembering of. Remember when they released The Last Jedi, and they demanded like every theater had to show it on their biggest screen for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they had to give like, what was it, 65% of the tickets?
Yeah. We had
and
something.
If you didn't comply, it had to be 70.
Yes, we had something similar with Tenet. They wanted our biggest screen for 4 weeks, and then 17 minutes of Warner Brothers trailers. And this is like August of the pandemic, and we were like, no, like, and the movie was over like 2.5 hours. We're like, no, for 4 weeks. I said everybody's going to come the first week, if that. No, like I said, this is ridiculous. I'm like, you should be giving us money to run your movie and be happy to take less than 50%, because we were one of the few theaters open in the area. And we were like, I thought we'd make a lot of money doing private screening. And I'm like, we had offers for it too. Like, oh, I'll pay $125 to come and see Tenet on my own. I'm like, okay. So we were, we thought this would be a good idea. Then we got their terms and we're like, no, this is not good. This is no. 4 weeks? 4? No. Like we're looking at debating whether or not 3 weeks is really viable for us at times. Because unless the movie is like a bona fide hit, like people want to see it. A bona fide hit to me is a movie that people want to see more than once in the theater. They can't wait to see it again. And in this world of instant gratification of, oh, in 2 weeks it's going to be on Netflix, that becomes an interesting, like, 3 weeks? Oh, in 4 weeks it comes on Netflix. So they're not going to go see it again, the second time if they know that they can just ride it out on Netflix. The movie's got to really, really, like, a movie like The Usual Suspects, where you want to see it again right away to see all the things you didn't know because you didn't know who the characters were, and now you're looking for all the clues that you should have indicated it the first time, and now you have that knowledge. Sixth Sense is another movie like that. You want to see it again real quick because you want to, like, wait a minute, I got to go through this whole movie again to see. There it was. Those movies are few and far between. So with the shorter day window and streaming coming into it being very, evident, people don't really go to the movies more than twice, or once, more than once to see something they really, really care about. So I used to be the same way. Buy it once, see it once, buy it. I'm done.
So you don't think that like Marvel is going to really like hold up, is essentially what you're saying. People that were going to see like Avengers movies and any Marvel movie multiple times.
Sorry, still there? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone is going to I don't think we're at that scale now for Marvel. I think it's almost like a reset. A Marvel movie, a Star Wars movie. I mean, that built for decades to get to that episode 9. For Marvel, it was what, 12 years in the making to get to Endgame? Like right now, it's a reestablishment.
It was and
that world.
I was going to bring up James Bond, that 25 movies, but that was also over the course of 60 years.
Right.
You have 25 MCU movies over 13.
Yeah.
14.
Yep. And the first couple they're not really tied to each other. They've retconned some things, but you're also looking at the fact that they have to reestablish the Marvel world. They have characters that were in those last couple of movies, like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, Ant-Man. They are now the forerunners. Thor is in Guardians of the Galaxy. They're going to be in both movies, Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're flip-flopping. So we have to look at those movies now, and then, is Galactus coming? Is there something bigger that's going to be indicated and hinted at that's going to get us to another Endgame Infinity Gauntlet kind of film? The Fantastic Four, is that going to establish those things? They're almost like, okay, we did our big epic. Now we got there. Now we have to start over again, establish new characters, do maybe a sequel or two, and then build to that. When does Spider-Man check out? When is Spider-Man done? When is Tom Holland done? We never recast anybody but the Hulk, really, in any of those films outside of, maybe, Rhodey or something. But no major character was really recast. So when will we get to that point when Tom Holland doesn't want to play Spider-Man anymore. Are we done with his storyline? Is Spider-Man not going to show up until they reestablish a new Spider-Man? Having a multiverse really does kind of help with that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you want to get old Spider-Man and just have it be Tobey Maguire. He's back. So it'll be interesting to see what Disney does. And, Disney's trying to relaunch Star Wars in some sort of capacity. Will it work? Will people buy into it? Or do we just want more heaping steeps of nostalgia with Boba Fett and Obi-Wan and even Cassian Andor? He's in that time of A New Hope or before it, in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. That's all stormtroopers. That's what we want. We don't want clone troopers when we don't want First Order troopers. So can Disney do that? Or can they just, I hate saying it, come up with something new, completely new. Let's do something new. We don't need the nostalgia button. I don't need, Fruit Loops my entire life because I love Fruit Loops. Give me something new. Let me try something different. Make a new story. Embrace something like Knives Out, which granted is a sequel, but let's establish new trilogies and let new characters, become our pop culture zeitgeist.
I mean,
look
at how popular John Wick got.
Exactly. Now what? There's going to be like 2 prequel spinoffs, and
yeah, there's already a John Wick 4. There's going to be a Continental series.
Yeah.
And so now there's going to be a spinoff with that Ana de Armas, the Bond girl from No Time to Die.
Yep. So let's get those things squared away, and let's try to do something new. And every once in a while, something new like John Wick does come out. And then, I haven't seen a single John Wick movie. I'm sorry, but we're 4th one now.
Mm-hmm.
When does it become tired? When does it become cliche? And it's all about the actors, the writers, the people involved. If they keep finding new ways to spin those characters, great. But until then.
Yeah. Do you think Disney really screwed themselves with the Disney Plus shows? With the Marvel shows, at least, not the Star Wars.
No.
The Star Wars, they kind of relaunched it.
No, I think the plus, it'll be interesting to see how we take a plus storyline from like WandaVision and how it incorporates itself into the multiverse and of madness with Doctor Strange. It'll be interesting to see it because you have to assume that they're going to tell you the story without you having watched that show. That's the old guard of how they would do it. That's why Quark never appeared in Star Trek Insurrection, even though they had filmed all the scenes for it, because they were afraid nobody would know who Quark was from Deep Space Nine.
They wanted to do that with Worf as well after the death of Jadzia Dax.
Yeah.
But they completely cut it.
Yeah. How do you do those things? How do you I'm not going to go into that tangent about Star Trek, the last Star Trek movie, 9 or whatever.
Nemesis.
Nemesis. I'm not going to go into Nemesis. So can they do that without giving us a recap? Do we need a recap because the Marvel audience is so tenacious about everything Marvel? You may not. It could be the most interesting jump to say, if my parents who've never watched WandaVision go to see Doctor Strange because they like Benedict Cumberbatch, do they go, what the hell happened with this Scarlet Witch person? I didn't understand any of her backstory or who this robot was. That was her husband. And those 2 kids, I didn't get any of that. Or do they watch the movie and say, well, it was good, I had some questions, and then they flip over Disney Plus and watch all of WandaVision in one shot? It'd be unprecedented for that to happen, to see if a whole nother generation of people go, well, wait a minute, so I should have watched 25 Marvel movies beforehand before I went in to watch Multiverse of Madness, plus 2 Spider-Man movies, maybe 3 Spider-Man movies to understand who the Sandman was. It's just, will it happen? It's. I never thought that you could have a Spider-Man cartoon that would have launched an entire franchise that would affect the next movie with the Spider-Verse movie. They did it. It was fantastic. Enough to make everybody thinks Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be in this next movie.
That's funny. You say Spider-Man cartoon. My mind immediately went back to the MTV cartoon from the early 2000s. If you remember,
Neil Patrick Harris.
It was a direct sequel to the first movie. But then if there would have been a second season, they would have gone off and done their own thing.
Yeah. It was, I liked it. I watched it.
Yeah. So I think we pretty much touched on everything that we needed to touch on.
Okay.
Day and date wasn't the worst thing in the world, I think is what we got, what we
Mhm.
inferred. And smaller theaters are obviously going to probably do a lot better than the big chains are, just because of corporate politics that
Right.
a theater like the Colonial doesn't have to deal with.
And people feel the need to invest in their community, and I think a lot of people feel attached to our theater because one, for some, it's the reason why they moved to town. They have they had a great experience there. They like the town itself. Plus, a lot of other people just like they believe in that smaller experience and having a movie with a community. And we mean a lot to a lot of different people. We're known all over the world now for being the theater from the Blob. So people, even if they haven't been here, they kind of feel attached to it because they've seen the movie and they want to come now. They want to come and see it. So we have that going for us too. So we are unique in a lot of ways. We can run the sci-fi and horror flag when we need to, and then we can show the art house movies like The French Dispatch and those kind of things that can say, hey, we're still an art house theater. We still enjoy running something different from Sony Classics.
And I imagine Blobfest is probably helping you out too.
It does. It enables us to really highlight the Blob and do a lot of fun things with the movie itself, and it enables us to open the door because we've reached out to people during the pandemic about giving videos, introductions, and would you come to Blobfest one day and that kind of thing. So it has really opened up our doors, and we've been trying to use it to get things like if Quentin Tarantino releases a book and does a book tour, would you come to our theater and do the book tour there? Because we're the theater from the Blob. So now you get to come in and enjoy. We show 35 millimeter prints. So, we do things like that open that door up that people will be like, oh, is that where you're from? Is that what it is? Oh yeah, I want to come. Okay, yeah. That's where I want to go. I want to go someplace special and unique, and I have an immediate attachment to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I'd like to thank you for your time. Like I said, I think we've pretty much covered all the ground we need to cover. This is probably going to come out on Sunday. So, do you have anything that you want to advertise? Any upcoming showings or events?
Well, if you're interested in coming to the Colonial Theater, we do have our Krampus Christmas Spectacular 2, which is Michael Dougherty's Krampus and Bob Clark's Black Christmas. Krampus is on DCP, Black Christmas on 35 millimeter. So it's a one-night double feature that happens on Krampus Knock, which is, I believe, December 3rd this year. And then, of course, we have Horror Bowl, which is Super Bowl Sunday. It'll feature 3 horror films wrapped around one actor, Tom Atkins, and that will be on Super Bowl.
Wait, is that an exclusive? Did I just get an exclusive?
No, we've been hitting at it for a while, so you can say it's, but Tom Atkins. And then, of course, we have Blobfest, which is the weekend after the 4th of July. I believe it's July 8th, 9th, and 10th this year. And it's called The House of Blob. And we are going to be doing some house-style films that will double feature with the Blob, and we'll have some other fun stuff. We don't even have any guests yet lined up or anything, but we are very excited to have Blobfest in person one way or another. We have no idea, what even that will entail, but we're very tired of doing the virtual event. We want to be with people again. We want to be outside, and that's hopefully by July, it'll be a safe place to do that.
Yeah. So I guess with that, this is a great spot to end it. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I am terrible at ending these videos. Bob, thanks so much for joining us, and I will see you guys next time.